Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. It is week 9 of the NFL season. Thank you guys for coming in. Crossover, welcome in. Good morning to you, sir. Hope you had a good weekend so far. Hope you get all of the wins that you're hoping for today, or losses. I think at this point in the season, some teams some people and fans are actually rooting for losses. We'll talk a little bit about that whenever we talk about the Texans-Dolphins game today. But welcome in. If I just don't have the energy today, fellas, it was a long day yesterday. We had our baby shower, which was fantastic. It was awesome. Had a great day. Ended up imbibing in some spirits, a little bit more than a little bit more than I anticipated, and it went a little bit later into the night than we thought about. We had some friends that stuck around for a little bit longer, which was awesome. So welcome in. It is week 9. It is our weekly NFL pregame show, where we will break down all the matchups of every game that is happening both today and tomorrow. If you're new, welcome in. If for some reason you made it over from Twitter, thank you very much. My name is Joe, better known as NFLosophy. Super excited to have you guys in. Can't thank you guys enough. We've got a fun little slate of games this week. We are in about an hour and a half. Let's see. It'll be about like 3 hours from now. About 3 hours from now, we will be halfway through the NFL season, which is crazy to think about to me because it does not feel like we're there yet. It feels like it's gone so fast, even with all the extra stuff that we've that I've had going on around the NFL season. It's just crazy to me that we are in a spot where we're halfway through the season. And the funny thing is we still don't know a lot about some of these teams. Like we learned that whenever we learned about that last week whenever we did our tiers, right? Sorry, I'm getting some other stuff set up while I'm talking. When we did our tiers last week, right? So we did our tiers, went through and said, you know what, we still don't have a good. It's always good to post that on Twitter because whenever I go and post that on Twitter, I need to check my fantasy lineups. I didn't get a chance to do that. An extra hour to do all this, and I still feel like I'm behind. So when we were doing our tiers last week on this week on Tuesday, really felt like there's a few teams that we still don't have a great understanding of, that we don't really know what they are yet. Think of a team like the Browns. What are they? And now they've just released Odell Beckham. We'll talk about that a little bit. But we don't really know who they are. We don't necessarily know who the Chargers are yet, though. I still have feelings that they're a good football team. I'll say it again. I think the line for the Chargers to only be -1 over the Eagles, it seems like a trap game. That seems so far, like that should be -6 for the Chargers to me. Don't care if they're flying across the U.S. and playing in Philly. I don't understand. I don't understand that line. So yeah, there's just some weird stuff that we'll talk about. There's some lines. There's some pretty big lines this week that are going to be hard to pick because they are so big. And those are the ones I tend to struggle with, just being transparent. I tend to struggle with them to pick them because to me, I'm going, at any point, this could be a backdoor cover, or it could be it could be something where it feels like it's a trap by Vegas and of saying, hey, we're going to give you this really big line and it's going to make it really hard for you to pick this one this week. So we got a few of those in there as well, but a couple interesting matchups that I feel like are going to be some good, and is going to tell us if the Chargers lose, I'll be so disappointed. Crossover. Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't see it. There's no way in my head that I can make this work unless, I mean, obviously injuries, right? Injuries are always the big deal of who is actually going to be, starting quarterback, always a big deal. Who's starting the game, who could potentially get injured in the game. Like, we can't predict that type of stuff. So we got to go off of what we know now, but nothing about this game in terms of injuries is making me change. Like, Asante Samuel Jr. is out. That's probably the most important probably the most important player on the Chargers roster that isn't going to make it this week, that isn't going to be playing. So really interested that game is scheduled the way that it is, or is lined up the way that it is. So yeah, so let's talk about, you can see an Eagles win if Boston Scott turns into prime Barry Sanders. Yeah, right? Right? Like it takes something crazy like that to happen for to feel like this is a game that they can't win, that the Chargers are going to lose, right? So it's just weird. We got a little bit of news to talk about, right? So I'm not going to cover the Aaron Rodgers thing in full all over again. We'll talk about it real quick. Um, and we'll talk about a couple other things, and then we'll get into the games. How was the baby shower yesterday crossover? It was awesome, man. It was really good. All of the wife's family. Typically not a big fan of co-ed baby showers, but it was one of those things where the wife was like, "Hey, should we do co-ed?" And I said, "Nobody does co-ed." And she goes, "Should we do co-ed?" A few days later, and I said, "Yeah, I don't think we should do co-ed." And then a few days later, she goes, "Should we do co-ed?" And I went, "No, probably not." And then she said, "Okay, we're doing co-ed." And so it was co-ed. And it was really just co-ed because she wanted like her dad to be able to be there and be part of it. And I said, "Look, like the guys, we'll go sit at a bar and watch college football or something like that. Like, we'll find a place where we can go hang out while you guys have your baby shower and you'll be just fine." And I got overruled, as I most often do in the house. And then it was great. Everybody showed up. Food was amazing. So my wife is Vietnamese. Her family always brings Vietnamese food, so some sort of Vietnamese food over, and we had like, I don't, for anybody that's not familiar with Tampa, there's a fantastic deli that's like the best deli in probably all of Florida that we ordered sandwiches from, and just had a lot of really good food. Broke out some of the really good bourbon to share with everybody yesterday. And then we started early and kept going. And even the older guys dipped into the Johnny Walker Blue a little bit and had a good time. So yeah, it was awesome, man. Can't say anything about it. Weather ended up holding up. It was a little chilly for Florida. I mean, I think it's what four. I mean, right now it's 64. Yesterday, I think at this time it was like 55, which is chilly for Florida. So, it was awesome. But appreciate you asking. All right, let's get into some NFL news. Um, it looks like, so one of the lines that we need to talk about today is the Cardinals. So it looks like all signs are pointing to Kyler Murray not playing today, which is pretty fascinating that he's not going to be able to do it, because the line was plus 1.5 for the 49ers. They're now favored by 3.5. Colt McCoy will start in that game if for some reason Kyler can't ends up not being able to go. And then like I said, we'll hit the Aaron Rodgers thing real quick. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time about it because we talked about it on the Thursday, Wednesday preview show, whenever that was. It feels like a year ago now that it's now that we are now that we're all the way to Sunday and we're past the baby shower. So let me go ahead and flip over here just so everybody's can see what the lines are for now. You can also use exclamation point odds for anybody that's new, and you can pull those up in the chat to make it a little bit easier. So for me, the whole Aaron Rodgers thing is just a huge disappointment. And the reason for that is because he didn't own up to anything. However you feel about the whole, it's taken me a couple days to kind of settle on where I stand about this, because no matter how you feel about the whole vaccination and all of that, Aaron Rodgers flat out lied. He still tried to work his way around it. He still used some very um you know un some language in that interview that was not straightforward about a lot of different things. He didn't own up to any of it. He basically, he had the list of talking points that he wanted to hit, and never ended up saying anything about, apologizing to anybody for what he did, or for lying or being misleading. It was just a poor show of character on Aaron Rodgers' part again, and that's outside of the whole he goes, he basically says, I'm not anti-vax, and then gives every bit of reasoning why he is anti-vax for 45 minutes. And, when please don't use Joe Rogan as your medical consultant. Just that's not, go talk to your doctor. Go talk to your doctor. And talk to your doctor only, and don't bring Joe Rogan into the equation. Just you're better off for it. So, and whatever alternative treatment that he wants to use, if it works for him, fantastic. But I thought there was a fantastic tweet earlier this week where somebody tweeted that Aaron Rodgers tested positive for the IN team because it was all about him and not about anybody else or anything. He didn't do anything for his team, and he talks about how um, it wasn't a selfish decision to do this, but then he spends 45 minutes talking about how he did it for himself and only himself, and be damned to anybody who thinks anything different. So just a super weird kind of exclamation or explanation of all of that from Aaron Rodgers. And um he's out for this game. He's not totally a 100% in for next game either. I think that's something we're going to get to, because he's going to be in protocol at least through the middle of this week, if not potentially longer. I think for him, it's based on when his last symptoms are. Not that I would, at this point, not that I would trust Aaron Rodgers to actually be honest about when his symptoms are. And here's the thing. I'll finish it off with this. If I'm Aaron Rodgers in that situation, and he allegedly is, and I say allegedly because he's been so slimy about everything else that he said about the situation, that allegedly feels like the appropriate word to use there. But if he's allegedly allergic to a couple of to an ingredient in two of the vaccines, bro, just say that. Like, if you don't want to face the criticism for it, nobody's going to criticize you for not taking something that's going to hurt you. And if that's legitimate, just say, hey, you know what? I'm allergic to a couple. And he said that he doesn't want to put his medical information out there. But bro, you play in the NFL. It's part of the deal. Like, don't act like this is new, right? This isn't a new like, you didn't learn that, hey, your medical history and all that stuff is put out there for the entire world to see. This is just how it is in the NFL. So don't act like that you didn't know that that was the case, and that's not something. It's the nature of the beast, right? Something that you've just got to man up and deal with to have your entire $50 million contract or whatever it is right now. But he said all he has to do, he could have avoided all of this just by saying, hey, turns out I'm allergic to an ingredient in at least two of the vaccines. I don't trust the third one. I'm making the personal choice not to go ahead with any of those. I am, however, seeking alternative treatment to try to figure this out and be the best player that I can be, and to be able to support my team and put myself in a healthy position. If he comes out and says that, everybody goes, "Oh, okay, cool, totally understand." The whole I've been immunized. So first of all, he said yes to the question, and then second of all, he said I've been immunized, which is, it's just being sneaky. And he clearly thinks he's more clever than the rest of the world that was going to be watching. He thought he was going to get by with that. And the reality is that he was never going to get by with it, because he was always probably going to come up with an issue, right? With ending up getting COVID, or being a close contact to someone getting COVID. So yeah, and he talks about how he's followed all the rules, and there's literally video of him not following the rules. So it's a guy that clearly can't take criticism very well, which is strange for an NFL player, but especially in his position. But you know, he's an interesting guy. He's a complicated fella, as they say in Green Bay. Crossover. I'm surprised that more guys who were openly hesitant at first to get vaxxed, who have faced no major symptoms, aren't speaking up. Not that they have to speak up, but it would be beneficial for someone like Cam, would talk about his experience getting vaxxed. I think that you're 100% accurate on all of that, right? Like, anybody that's gone through it, right? And to me, the way I see it, to be completely transparent, is it's a number. I think in terms of probabilities, right? There is if I get a vaccine, it's 97% effective and keeping me from getting seriously ill, and there's less than a 1% chance of me having serious side effects from said vaccine. Okay, sign me up. I don't know. There's no medicines that have that except for the tiniest little stuff like Advil and Tylenol. Like everything else has a higher percentage of not work, or a lower percentage of working and a higher percentage of something bad going wrong. So to me, it's like, okay, go for it. And I had some great conversations with people in my DMs on Twitter because I asked them questions about like, hey, I want to understand the opposite side of this. I think Cam is an interesting one to use because I would like to ask Cam how he feels about it. And I'm sure he probably has a YouTube video, honestly, talking about getting vaxxed and all that, because he has his own YouTube channel and stuff, and I haven't gone looking for it. But it's an interesting thing because with him getting vaxxed, and if he ends up being okay, and getting his thoughts about it, because he's the guy that's going to speak up and tell you exactly as it is. And he may say, hey, he may have a different viewpoint on it than that, because he may view it as, I was forced into doing this to try to get a job in the NFL and to keep playing in the NFL. So he may have a little bit of kind of a negative opinion to start with on it, that he had to get it to be able to do this. Because like I said earlier in the season, if Cam is vaxxed, Cam doesn't get released. Cam ends up the backup in New England, probably, because it's probably not Hoyer doing it. They'd probably rather have Cam than Hoyer, as the backup in New England. But at the point where they decided that Mac was the guy and that Cam wasn't going to be it, and Cam's not vaxxed, um, I mean, that made it a pretty easy decision for New England at that point to say, hey, the risk, they're always judging risk and reward, right? That's the whole decision, is risk versus reward. So they made that decision. I would be curious to hear what Cam thinks, but I do think it's a great point. Like anyone that's anti, that chose not to get the vaccine and then ends up getting it, I'd like to hear kind of what their thought process was, what got them to actually to get the vaccine, and then what was it at, like what was it like afterwards? Was it as bad as they thought? Was it better than they thought? Worse than they thought? That type of thing. Always curious to listen to people. I love when people are willing to change their viewpoints after having a good conversation on something. I think that's important. All right, that spent a little bit longer on that than I had anticipated. So we got Kyler, we got Aaron Rodgers, OBJ released this week. So this is a really interesting situation because this isn't something that typically happens like this, right? This is a player who decided to speak up because he was unhappy in a situation, and we'll look at this from a few different viewpoints. So, when we're looking at it from OBJ, and we'll talk about it both in football terms and in personal terms, and also a little bit in business terms as well. Because when OBJ ends up speaking up, he ends up, and let's just be clear, the his dad putting out that video, his dad's like a 70-year-old man, and there's no shot he was able to edit that video. Somebody put that video together for him to put out there and then make sure that everybody saw. So whether that's OBJ or OBJ's camp, like that was intentional, right? There was a reason behind that. And it's been a history with OBJ of not the greatest decisions off the field. Really talented player, right? Like super talented player. Teams are not asking themselves, hey, can OBJ help us as a wide receiver? Because he's good enough that he's going to help all but maybe the Bucks and the Cowboys, as a third or fourth wide receiver. Like everybody else is probably going, yeah, I could use OBJ. Um, and that makes it for an interesting case, because again, it goes back to risk reward for teams. All of the teams are looking at this as, do I want the headache that could potentially come with OBJ, and can I deal with it based on what I think I can get out of him, or do I think I can alleviate that headache? Like, does him coming here, do I have the capability, the wherewithal, the coaching staff to be able to, in the system, because we'll talk about that in a second, in the system, that's going to incorporate OBJ, let him be a really good player, and that's going to help kind of quieten the whole thing. Um, so yeah, for OBJ, I do think that it's a personal decision for him to get out of there, and most of that is going to be because of the system. So it's really easy to put out a video like that of a quarterback missing an open wide receiver, and the reason for that is their system is based off of. We've talked about this a lot with Brady and the Bucks, right? So Brady and Bruce Arians' system is built to take the deep shot first. So if you're open deep, that's where the ball goes, and then you work back to the line of scrimmage in terms of your progression for the most part in that system, right? The Browns are built where you have a progression that reads line of scrimmage to deep. OBJ tends to run the deeper routes in that system. Now you've got Jarvis Landry and some other guys, tight ends that are going to be running, and running backs that are going to be running some shorter routes. And the thing is that Stefanski is really good at designing a system to get those first couple of guys open. The reality is Baker never makes it through his progression to OBJ. Because he never makes it all the way to OBJ, that means OBJ is going to be running free out in the out in the ether, out in the middle of the field or on the perimeter, and he's never going to get the ball because when you're the third, and you can make a case that why do you have a system that puts OBJ third, right? That puts OBJ third in the progression. Why would you put a good player like that so far down? And I mean, there's some honest truth to that, right? There's some validity to that question. My question now for OBJ is so first of all, he's got to go through waivers. So the way the waivers process works, vested veterans, so 5 years or more before the trade deadline, do not have to go through waivers. If you are released after waivers, everybody goes through waivers, or released after the trade deadline, everybody goes through waivers. So before trade deadline, anyone that is younger than that has spent less than 5 years in the league, so 4 years and below, they have to go through waivers if they're released. If you're a vested veteran 5 years or more before the trade deadline, a release means you just go straight to free agency. You're an open free agent. After the trade deadline, you hit waivers. Waiver priority is just like you would have in your fantasy football league. Worst team first, best team last. And it goes through that. And it's not a reset either, right? So if 10 players all get if 10 players all get released over a weekend or on the same day and go through waivers within the same 24-hour period, then the Lions get first shot at all 10. They could pick up 5 of them if they wanted to, and they would still have first shot at the other 5 too. So that's how waiver priority works in the NFL. So that means that the Lions right now actually have the first shot. Now, if you're a bad team, think about this in terms of your fantasy team. It's rare that I allow like a fantasy comparison to a real life comparison, but think about this. If you're the worst team and a guy like OBJ ends up on the waiver wire and you're able to claim him, you're probably claiming him, right? But the reality is in the NFL, that's not necessarily the case, especially for a headache like OBJ. Because if OBJ hits the waiver wire and he doesn't want to play for the Lions, for example, if they claim him, so first of all, when they claim him, they owe him whatever the rest of his contract. They take on his current contract. There's no new negotiations or nothing like that has to happen. They just take him on just as his contract is. He becomes part of their team. As soon as he's awarded to them, he can start practicing. So no delay, nothing like that. So theoretically, when he hits waivers on Monday, because they didn't make the official release as of 4 o'clock on Friday, which was the deadline. He's going to be on waivers come Monday morning, and then everybody's going to put in their waiver claim, and then he's based on whoever's number one in that priority is who he's going to get awarded to. Now, there's a couple weird things that could happen here. You could have him go to it's possible, but not likely that he clears waivers. And the reason for that is that his current contract isn't terrible as it is now. it does make it hard for some teams who are cap strapped to get him. But with the cap, there's always a little bit of room to maneuver if you necessarily need to do that. So there are a large amount of teams that could potentially claim him. Now, his agent is probably behind the scenes going, "Don't claim my guy. Don't claim my guy. You can claim my guy. Don't claim my guy. Yeah, he would love to come here and play." Like he's probably made those calls to different GMs throughout the league and had those conversations because if you claim him and he's not what he should be, then or what you think that he should be, then for me, um, you're just taking on a headache. You're going to have the same situation that Cleveland has, right? Like that you're just going to get a player that's not as good as what you think he should be, and because he doesn't want to play there. And he's, and the other thing is OBJ came out last night or this morning and basically said, it was leaked that he wants to go to a contender. No shit, Sherlock. Well, thanks for that, right? Like, unbelievable that you mean you don't want to go to a terrible team? I mean, who wants to go to a terrible team, right? There's very few people that are like, hey, sign me up for the Lions. I really want that. Like, there's nobody that's going to voluntarily sign up for that. Um, and unless you're from Detroit or there's a number of reasons. Hey, family in Detroit, whatever it might be. So for me, it's a really weird situation with OBJ. This isn't normal. Most players who make this type of noise, like think back to the old TO situation, they usually don't get their way inside of the season. They may get it after the season. But it was clear that the Browns are like, look, we're better off without you. Um, and it's one of those. What was the? I can't remember what the football movie was, but or it might have even been a baseball movie. But there's somebody that they're playing in whatever sport that it is, and he's like, you know what that team thinks about you? They're paying you $10 million to not play for them. That's what they think about you. And that's the Browns right now. They're paying OBJ $10 million or whatever it is for him not to play for them. They like you have to, as a GM, you have to consider that, right? And coaches and GMs, they always feel like, oh, he's talented, we can change him. He's going to be much better here. Belichick has a history of being able to do that with free agents, but most guys, most coaching staffs, they don't have that amount of credibility to do something like that and get the buy-in from a guy who historically has not bought in nor cooperated at any stop that he's been on. So it's a roll of the dice. Could be a potentially really good roll of the dice, and you could hit the jackpot. But history has shown you're more likely to roll snake eyes than you are a 7 on this particular roll. How much do you want to trust that? And again, what's the risk reward? Crossover. Let's see. I know OBJ has been on the decline for some time now, but I'm shocked more people haven't linked Browns, OBJ, and 29 Stephon Diggs. Yeah, it's a good point, actually, right? So for anyone not aware, Stephon Diggs kind of did the same thing. He was not happy in Minnesota, but he ends up getting traded in the offseason, right? If I remember correctly. Not in the middle of the season. And I think that's a big difference in the situation here because he has to come around and figure out, let me see here. Let's see. Stephon Diggs was traded March 16th. Yeah. So he was traded in the offseason. So now you've got a player, and this is where like you have to think all the way through every single element because there could be one tiny fatal flaw that you don't consider in the whole situation or in the whole process. So now Stephon Diggs is traded in the offseason, and he's got a few months to get up to speed on the playbook. He's got training camp, all of that. If you're trading for OBJ, smart player, wide receiver is a hard position to play because you and your quarterback have to know the play's cold, have to know all the adjustments, the sight adjustments that happen based on what the defense is playing, and be on the same page while doing that. That's really, really hard to do. It's not impossible to do in a week or two, but it's really, really hard to do. And he's going to have to work his ass off to be able to get to that point with whatever new team that he plays for. So it's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch. I don't, he's not going to go to a team and immediately get 15 targets. He might go to a team and get a target or two over the next couple of weeks, but he's technically not in the driver's seat right now. And his camp may think that they are and think that they're getting what they want, but be careful what you wish for, because he may not end up where he really wants to go. If OBJ falls to the Packers, they will claim him because we could for sure use more drama. Right, Ryan. The funny thing is if you look at waiver priority, Packers are pretty deep in the waiver priority NFL. Let's see, because I've heard a lot about, oh well, what about the Cardinals, or um, what about the Cardinals, or what about the Packers? And the reality is that they're 30th, I think. Cardinals are 36. Cardinals are dead last. Packers are 28th. Like if for me, I've talked about this on Twitter the other day. So the current waiver priority is Lions, Dolphins, Texans, Jags, Jets. None of those are the 4 or 5 worst teams in the NFL. His agent has said, if you claim my guy, he will not play for you. Um, Giants, nope. Washington, nope. Eagles start to get into maybe there's potential for mutual interest there. The Eagles are probably very likely interested in OBJ because they love their wide receivers, and he's a different type of wide receiver than what they currently have. So you start to get a little bit of interest there. Then you get to the Seahawks at number 9. And while maybe not necessarily a contender, it's an interesting spot for him to potentially go. I mean, that's a pretty solid, between DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and OBJ. That's a pretty solid one. You got a good quarterback. You got an offense that both can run the ball and throw the ball. Not necessarily a contender, but he could put them into contender status potentially if his head's right. So like even in the 8 and 9 slots, you're getting into teams that, hey, yeah, it makes sense. Then you got we'll skip over the Bears, Falcons, but you got the 49ers who are supposedly interested. The Vikings probably don't need him, and probably aren't all that interested in him after the whole Stephon Diggs thing. You got Colts, Pats, Broncos, and then, well, Browns obviously aren't going to claim them. And then Chiefs, like the Chiefs could totally use somebody like him, and the Chiefs are at 18. So like for him, he's got to get through all of these teams to get all the way down to the Packers. And the reality is if he makes it through those first, 15, 16 teams, he's probably, the other guys aren't probably going to claim him. I mean, they might. It just feels like everybody's probably going to be on the same page as to whether OBJ should be claimed or not. So OBJ might hate being a Seahawk. He'll hate getting 6 targets a game. I mean, he's getting 6 targets a game now. So like any team that he wants to go to is at the bottom of that list. It's a really interesting situation. I don't have a good like, hey, this is what's going to happen with him in terms of I don't have a good feel for who's likely to claim him. I know all the reports are he's likely to sign with this team. Like he wants to sign with this team. And that's great, but it's not going to be his choice. Like he's likely going to get claimed by somebody. So fascinated by that story. Oh yeah, totally don't think he'll fall to the pack, but would be so fitting for this year. Yeah, I mean, whatever, Ryan. Whenever you've got that much drama swirling around, it's always fun. Hey, be good or be interesting. At least the Packers are both interesting and good this year. That's makes for a lot of fun. Maybe a little bit of hair pulling, but still pretty fun. OBJ and the Raiders would make a lot of sense. Yeah, it would. And he's got a quarterback that will throw him the ball. And we'll throw it to him deep. We'll attack aggressively. So that's actually one I hadn't really considered yet. Crossover. I think that one would be a fascinating one, especially with everything going on with the Raiders right now. But Mike Mayock says he's interested in getting character guys. He wants character guys. Meanwhile, one of his cornerbacks is threatening people on TikTok or Instagram or something with with an AR in the video. and telling him he'll kill him for real. So, you know, uh, there's just a whole lot of stuff going on with the Raiders right now. Poor team, poor Rich Bisaccia, who I still love as a coach. Fantastic dude. Just he's got a lot to handle right now. So all right, that took a little bit longer than to get through kind of the news of the day than I would like. So we're gonna breeze through some of these games. We always go on Thursdays, and this week it was on Wednesday. We had to move it up because of the baby shower. I needed an extra day to prepare for that. So we talked about all of the games on Wednesday, and we do the high level preview of like, hey, here's the things that I'm looking at going into this game, and things that I want to research a little bit more. And then on Sunday, we actually talk about the specific matchups: D line versus O line, quarterback versus secondary, play caller versus play caller, right? DC versus OC. Because I think that's probably the biggest matchup every single week is to talk about those coordinator matchups and what those look like. So we'll get into those today. We'll talk a little bit deeper in. Because we took a little bit of extra time today, we might not get as deep in some of these games as I would have liked to. We'll hit on the Thursday night game because usually we have an opportunity to be able to talk about the Thursday night game during it. And I regret not tweeting this, but before Thursday's game, I wanted to say Colts by 1,000,000 because after our talk on Wednesday night, and talking about the Jets and Colts, like there was so much hype around Mike White. And I just saw that crossover. I just got the notification. Tua, small fracture in the middle of his throwing hand that has not recovered enough to allow him to start today's game. Jacoby Brissett is now expected to be the Dolphins starter. And also in that particular game, Tyrod is starting, which changes that matchup a good amount too. And we'll talk about that. Usually I would just fly right past a Houston Miami matchup because really the loser in that game is the winner, because they're in a better position for the first overall start or first overall draft pick in the draft than this year. But that one's actually an interesting matchup because now both quarterbacks are changing for that game, which makes it much harder to be able to pin that line down. So toilet bowl, it really is, Ryan. Really is. So with the Jets and Colts, I saw this line at 10.5, and I thought, you know what, that feels like a good amount. It feels like it's probably in the range on Wednesday night. And then I really thought about it and I went, nah, the Colts match up so well against the Jets overall, and the hype around Mike White has gotten too much. Like he played okay a couple of weeks ago, but people were like, "Oh, Mike White might take over for Zach Wilson," and I'm like, guys, what have we really? We're getting that hype, like into the hype that much. And we talked about it on the show on Wednesday night. Like he's not that good. He made a few he did some good things, right? He let some of his playmakers win the football. Like he gives them opportunities to win at the point of attack. He doesn't do a good job of um being efficient. Basically, he's a check down machine that gives an opportunity for his guys to go win every once in a while. And he had a couple of good looks that he made work in the week before. For this particular game, Mike, it was a bad matchup for the Jets. The reason for that is the Colts have speed all over the field on defense. For offense, and this is where it really kind of keyed in for me, if you can block the Jets front line, which most teams can, it's the best unit that the Jets have all throughout their entire team on both offense and defense is that defensive line. They're not bad. It's a defensive line that you could probably say, hey, they're going to be okay. We don't really need to draft for that next year. They're going to be good enough, but they're not going to be great. They're probably middle of the pack, and that's the best unit that the Jets have. And then I'd say probably their wide receiver unit is probably middle of the pack as well. Their wide receivers aren't bad. Everything else is terrible for them. And so if you can block the Jets up front, you can do whatever you want. And the Colts offensive line is getting healthy. They're actually pretty good. Jonathan Taylor was always going to run all over them. Not surprised that he ran for 200 yards whatsoever. Carson Wentz wasn't going to make the same stupid mistakes against the Jets defense that's just not very good. And that they were going to be able to block up front. As long as Carson doesn't make those mistakes, this is an easy win for the Colts. And of course, they run away with the game. So again, that's why we look at the matchups on Sunday mornings, is because that's what matters week to week. Because we can watch the Jets go in and beat a team one week and then come in and play a worse team the next week, and they have no business, even being on the field with that second team still. It's just how it matched up. And we talked about the Jets the previous week. We're probably going to get a Cincinnati team that hadn't really learned how to deal with success. Cincinnati was coming off that big Ravens win, in which they stomped the Ravens out, scored 31 unanswered in the second half, I believe, in that particular game. And it's really hard to come off of that game and not have a letdown game against a team like the Jets. Cincinnati walked into that game, walk into that game, end up allowing Mike White to beat him late in the game. They got some help from the refs in that game with one of the worst calls that we've ever seen. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh my God, Mike White and the Jets just beat Cincinnati. They were never coming into this game to beat the Colts. It just wasn't happening. They matched up well against the Bengals because the Bengals offensive line is pretty terrible. And they didn't need to blitz the Bengals offensive line to be able to get pressure on Joe Burrow, and to be able to at least hold them to a manageable score. And then that Bengals defense isn't as good as a lot of people think. Like as long as you can get rid of the ball on time and get that check down, the Bengals don't tackle very well. They play some softer coverages. They don't have great corners. And so the Jets were able to hang with the Bengals in that particular game. So this one turned out exactly as we predicted on the Wednesday night show. We're pretty good on Thursday night games so far in the matchups. I think we're 4 for 4, like spot on the last 4 in terms of calling exactly what's going to happen in those games. So, kudos to you guys, because some of the comments from Wednesday night made me rethink that, because to me, I was going, can I really take the Colts to cover 10.5? Like the whole world was saying that, oh, the Jets are easily going to cover 10 points. And after talking to you guys, you really made me think it through, and it was awesome to come out with the exact call for that particular game. All right, so that's the Thursday night game. Let's get to today's game. So Atlanta, New Orleans is a fun one, simply because New Orleans is getting Taysom Hill is available for this game, but Trevor Siemian is the guy, and that's after Sean Payton had said, hey, if Taysom Hill's good to go, he's the starter. And it turns out that Taysom Hill's good to go and he's not the starter. So don't know if that was a little bit of like head games by Sean Payton, or after seeing Trevor Siemian be able to run that offense and play okay against the Bucs. It's not like he played great. He had a few turnover worthy plays last week that the Bucs should have had that would have completely flipped that game at key points. So it's not like Trevor Siemian he's not to the level of hype that Mike White has been, but also let's not act like Mike White is let's not act like Trevor Siemian is the guy here, right? I just realized, son of a bee, that I have Tom Brady in one of my leagues, and he's on bye week, and I had picked up Tua because I thought Tua was going to have a massive game. And now I've got to go get a quarterback real quick, because it's one of those leagues where if you don't, the timing of the waivers is 11 a.m. And if you don't get it in by 11 a.m., you're pretty much screwed. So I may not have a quarterback in one of my leagues if I don't do this real quick. Sorry. This is the fun of Twitch. This isn't a professional show, as you can tell. I go through fantasy things just like you do, of going, oh crap, I don't have a quarterback because Tua was just announced that he's not playing. So, yeah, let me fix that real quick. So Trevor Siemian, ends up the one good thing I'll say about Trevor Siemian last week is he plays on time, which is actually, and I talked about this before against the Bucks, is actually a thing that the Bucks struggle with a little bit, is quarterbacks who throw it on time and are good in those short to intermediate areas and don't really take a whole lot of chances with the ball. As long as they can have decent ball placement and can put it where basically where they need to be. Um, then the Bucks tend to struggle with that because they like to play a good amount of zone. They play off, and they'll play some off man as well. Keep everything in front of you while blitzing up front, and then run to the ball and tackle because they have some of the best linebackers in the league, and Levante David and Devin White. That can get to the football and tackle. They've got Antoine Winfield Jr. who does the same thing basically, and then Jordan Whitehead's pretty good in that safety spot too. So that was a bad matchup for the Bucks. Like, it was actually a worse matchup for Trevor Siemian to come into that game than it was for Jameis Winston to be in that game, because Jameis Winston is more likely to hold the ball. And we talked about this specifically with the Bucks and the Dolphins, is if you hold the ball against the Bucks, you're going to get screwed. You need an offensive line to be able to block up front. The Saints have that. And that means that you can attack the secondary if you can block them up front, but you still don't want to hold the ball any longer than you have to. You need to get the ball out on time, and the plays need to be designed to attack that intermediate to deep part of the defense of the Bucks. Simeon coming into that game, he was going to have time, but he got the ball out on time, which was really, really useful for the Saints. So Simeon comes in, he's starting today. That's going to be an important key today as well, for the Saints, because I do think that his ability to get the ball and distribute the ball around is going to be fine. And the Falcons can make any. We talked about this. They can make any quarterback look good. Now, how much time does Taysom Hill get in? I don't know. But this is a Saints offense, and that's kind of still trying to figure out its way. But the defense is legit. The defense is a top 5 defense, if not top 2 or 3 defense in the NFL. And the Saints are going to struggle to move the ball today, or they should struggle to move the ball. No Calvin Ridley really hurts. It allows defenses to be able to key on Kyle Pitts, who's trying to emerge, but without a third threat outside of him and Cordero Patterson, it makes it tough. I would say the Falcons actually focus on Pitts and Patterson, and there's opportunity for guys like Gage to potentially have a good game, but maybe yeah, it's not a great matchup for the Falcons. This is one where you have to take the Saints. I don't see any way. I get it. It's a intra-division matchup, NFC South. Like, these can be close games. Just even though it doesn't make any sense, it could potentially be a close game. You have to take the Saints here. I don't think there's any way for me to take the Falcons. Arthur Smith is doing a good job of trying to figure out that offense. I think I see a progression in it, but that team is just too bad. So yeah. We're gonna have to go there. Let's see. Yeah, I'm taking the Saints. Taking the Saints in that one. Saints -7. Next thing I need to do on the stream here is I need to be able to figure out how to make these picks on screen and actually show them as I pick them. But that's gonna be Saints -7. So we had Colts -10.5, Saints -7, Broncos Cowboys. Probably won't spend a ton of time here. -10 for the Cowboys at home in AT&T Stadium in Dallas. The Cowboys, the one thing that makes me nervous about this line is the Broncos will mix it up and they'll play a good amount of off coverage, which is probably what they need to do against the Cowboys. Dak's first game back, he's probably going to be fine. They'll probably try to take some of the load off because you can run against this Denver defense. The Denver defense, let me see, where'd you go? 25th overall in DVOA. They're 27th in rush DVOA. They're not great against the run. It's a good matchup for them to run Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard could be a kind of a sneaky play if you need a running back to play in because of a bye week or something like that. Because this feels like a game where the Cowboys are probably going to try to run it a good amount, which when that happens, could make it end up being a closer game than it should be. Cowboys are easily a 10-point better team than the Broncos right now. The other little bit of thing that scares me is this line has the Denver offense built in without Jerry Jeudy, right? Like it's going off of how bad that offense has been without Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy comes back last week, looks okay. Definitely makes the offense a little bit better, makes Teddy a little bit comfortable. I just feel like it's just not factored into this line because Jerry Jeudy makes this offense. He's going to allow this offense to be able to run on schedule much more, which is going to be super, super helpful. I like the Cowboys as a 10-point favorite. I just think that this line isn't quite where it needs to be. I like if this were -7, -8 for the Cowboys, probably there. I think 10 is a little bit too much. So on this one, I'm gonna go Denver plus 10 simply because I think that this offense, um, I like Denver simply to cover. I don't think they're gonna win, but I like Denver to cover because I do think the Cowboys are gonna try to run it a good amount because they want to take some of the load off of Dak, who should be nursing that calf injury. And they can run it against Denver, and that's going to make the game a little bit closer. And then I also think that Denver's offense is a little bit better than this line might suggest, simply because Jerry Jeudy allows them to stay on schedule. So I'm going to go for this one. I'm going to go Denver plus 10. Oh, wait, I got to make sure I'm getting these notes down. All right, so we got New Orleans -7. Denver plus 10. That one's one I'm not too comfortable with, though. Not too comfortable at all with that particular line. It's just 10 is right on the edge of where I feel like I wouldn't. Dallas could cover, could not cover. All right, New England, Carolina. Now, let me start off this one by saying, hang on. Want to start off this one by saying I am not nearly as high on the Patriots as everybody else is. I'm not nearly as high on Mac Jones as everybody else is. PFF has him graded as their number one quarterback over the since week 5 or week 6 or something like that. Now, you have to understand how PFF grades quarterbacks. As long as you don't put the ball in harm's way, you're going to get a good grade. You don't have to be a good quarterback to get a good PFF grade as a quarterback. All you have to do is not put the ball in harm's way. Patrick Mahomes, horrible grade because he's putting the ball in harm's way. Ended up with turnovers that, even though some of them aren't his fault, gets a horrible grade because of it. Tom Brady puts the ball in harm's way as little as anybody else and has a fantastic grade. Now, if you want to talk about effectiveness and efficiency, don't go to PFF grades for that. That's not what that indicates. And it's not how they grade. So, for me, when I watch Mac Jones, I see a guy that checks the ball down all over the place. And how can we praise Mac Jones to do that? And we used to criticize the daylights out of Derek Carr for doing that. Now I get it. Mac Jones, context. He's a rookie playing behind a not great offensive line that was supposed to be really good. Doesn't have the greatest amount of weapons. He does have 2 good tight ends, by the way. Like, let's not act like the cupboard's bare. They have Hunter Henry's a really good tight end. Jonnu Smith not playing to what he should. Jacoby Myers, N'Keal Harris, like, it's not like he's got weapons at wide receiver, but they're good enough to get it done. So it's not like he's playing at a deficit. So for me, Mac Jones playing okay, not playing great. And I'm not nearly as high on the rest of New England as everybody else seems to be. I think they are extremely well coached, but I don't think that roster is anything special. So I think Matt Judon's a good player. Josh Uche's played pretty well. The secondary is okay all in total, but I feel like this is a game where Carolina is getting CMC back, and I would imagine that with CMC being back in, that this line would have moved a little bit more than what it had from, I think it was 3 plus 3.5. I would have accounted for CMC to move the line a lot more. Not as high on New England. And then the other thing is I think for Carolina, Carolina's defense matches up really well against the New England Patriots. And the reason for that is I think that they do a really good job of getting pressure from their front four. Their front four allows their line keeps their linebackers clean to be able to support in the run game as well. And those linebackers really fast, super fast. And then they've got the corners and the safeties to be able to cover behind it. So fantastic against the pass game. However, they do struggle a little bit against the run game. And the reason for that is they're a little bit lighter up front and you can own the line of scrimmage. So because you can own the line of scrimmage, and we saw that against the Cowboys specifically, I do think that this is a running game and a check down game for Mac Jones. He may throw like if they're not going to have Mac Jones throwing at these corners. They're not going to let Stephon Gilmore have an opportunity to intercept 4 or 5 passes in this particular game. New England's going to play a more conservative game plan than they might against a better team. And New England, and that's the thing, is New England in the way that they coach and the way that they scheme and strategize, they don't care about winning by 40 points. When they had Randy Moss and they wanted to blow teams out because of Deflategate and stuff like that, like that's when they wanted to win by 40. The Patriots don't care how much they win by, only that they win. So they tend to play close games. It's hard for me to think that the Patriots are going to be much better than 3 points over the Panthers. But for me, the Panthers are a defense that could potentially keep the Patriots from scoring a lot. And this is one of those games where if the Patriots can't seem to find their way on offense, if for some reason the Panthers come in and are able to stop the run for New England, then that means that 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 New England's going to have to scheme it up in some of those trick plays that they like to run. So you may see that end around and halfback pass and all of that good stuff, the reverses and all of that to try to get a fast flowing defense out of the way. Look for a lot of misdirection in terms of the runs. It's not going to be straight power, but a good amount of misdirection in terms of the runs by the Patriots to try to get the Carolina defense moving themselves out of position. Carolina is 6th against the pass and DVOA and 19th against the run. So those two numbers feel about right. Overall, they're 8th in DVOA. So good defense. Phil Snow's going to scheme it up in terms of trying to get the Pats in a pass situation and putting blitzes out there. He's going to make Mac Jones understand what he's seeing, not only in the secondary but up front as well. And I don't know that the Patriots' offensive line is particularly great at pass blocking right now. They're better than what they were earlier in the season. They've come together a little bit, but I don't know that they're going to be able to block these guys up front. And I don't think the Pats want to let them get there. So I'm taking Carolina +3. Remember, it felt like I was one of the few that was on Carolina to beat the Falcons last week too. Carolina got a lot of bad flack and a lot of bad press the last couple of weeks from taking some pretty bad losses. But with Sam Darnold, with CMC, with a good matchup for this defense, this could potentially be a Carolina win. Not just a cover. This is probably my favorite game for an upset for this week. And if that isn't the case, and then the Patriots end up coming out and putting it on the Panthers, all right, I'm all in on the Patriots. I'll believe it because I feel like this is a bad matchup for their particular type of offense that can cover those shorter routes, can play man against them and blitz up front, and don't need to blitz if they don't want to. So I'm going Panthers +3, and one of the few games that I feel like is a really good matchup to be able to take this. This would be one of my, like, if I were to pick 3 out of every week that I felt really good and comfortable with, this is one of them. Which it feels like every time I say that it ends up the opposite. So maybe I shouldn't say that. All right. Carolina +3 at home too, which is even better. Line was 41.5. It's moved up to 42. It could potentially be. It's probably moved up half a point because Darnold's in instead of PJ Walker. There's a lot of people that were not happy about PJ Walker potentially starting in this game. So yeah, Panthers +3. All right, Vikings Ravens, one of the more fun matchups. So I'm gonna tell you right now, it's Vikings +6, and the reason for that is because the Vikings like to play very very close games. The Vikings tend to play in one score games pretty much every single week. Max Bonanza, welcome in. Thanks so much for the follow. I really appreciate that. Welcome in. It is week 9, and we are getting through all of these games hopefully pretty quickly. We're going to be here up until 1 p.m. Eastern time, so right until the. I'll try to leave some time at the end in case there's anything that you guys want to talk about, maybe last minute fantasy decisions, anything like that. Feel free to ask the questions along the way. Odds are in the chat as well. If you they should be updated as of this morning. Oh, I didn't change my date on it, but those are updated as of this morning. So. You know what? I can actually change that real quick while I'm here. What is today? 11/7. As of what time did I do that? It was like 11 a.m. All right, done. All right, and then as always, since we're getting into that time, I think it's always good to call out. Let's see, where's this game? Weather, Baltimore. What's our weather in Baltimore looking like right now? You can always do ! weather space and then whatever city you want to pull it up as to be able to see. So wind is blowing about 9 miles per hour. A little chilly, 9 mile per hour wind. So about what you might expect, but that could be big for games that are in Cleveland or Kansas City where the wind can start whipping or it gets cold or snowy. Always interesting to be able to pull that. The only problem is it's current weather, right? Not future weather. So like we can't really look at Pittsburgh for tomorrow night and what that forecast is. Maybe we'll figure out how to do that later. So just some fun chat commands that are always there. ! Commands in the chat if you want to take a look at all of the ones that are there. What else? All right, we're good on that. So I'm taking Minnesota in this game, and it's not necessarily because there are any particular matchups. The reality is that Minnesota is the type of team that can run the ball. They can throw it in the short to intermediate. Kirk Cousins doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but they play a lot of close games. Anytime that it's 6 or 7, I'm taking the Vikings. So if we go back and look, they lost 27-24 in OT against Cincinnati. Against Arizona, 34-33, they lost. Seattle was the only game that was over a full touchdown, and that was a 30-17 win. And then Cleveland, I think that was the one where maybe Geno came in. Was that the Geno game? Geno came in at the end. It was trying to lead a comeback and was actually looking pretty good. Cleveland, they lost 14-7. That's the second highest. That's the only game that's been a full 7 points. And then win 19-17 over Detroit, 34-28 win over Carolina, and then 20-16 against the Cowboys. They play close games. They also play a similar style of defense to what the Bengals currently play, which is rush 4, get some good pressure up the middle and on the edges without having to blitz a ton, play some man coverage behind it, and then and they have solid corners. Bashaud Breeland has played really well. I do still think that he can be attacked. I don't think it's a particularly good matchup with him and Marquise Brown because I do think Hollywood Brown is going to be able to get some open opportunities deep against Bashaud Breeland. And I don't like the matchup of the secondary of the Vikings against the Ravens. However, I do think that the Vikings will come in with a good game plan on the edges and how to manage Lamar and be able to get a pass rush, plus also manage him in the pocket, keep him in the pocket. I do think that they're basically going to do exactly what the Bengals did a couple weeks ago. The rush and retrace. So your defensive ends, you run to the level of the quarterback and you are very, very disciplined in not getting pushed past him. So when you come all the way up and you stop at the edge and then you run straight back to the line of scrimmage, you don't run. So normally what happens is defensive ends, if you're looking at it from the defensive point of view, right? Defensive ends will go like this and they'll run up. And then if they get to the level, so say the quarterback's right here, they'll get to the level of the quarterback and then they try to squeeze. And that's what they try to do. And a lot of times defensive or offensive tackles will push those defensive ends beyond where the quarterback is because now they're just basically out of the play and they're chasing it from behind. which is a really good blocking tactic. But when those defensive ends push and try to squeeze to the middle on the quarterback, that allows a guy like Lamar to just run. It leaves big running lanes in that section of where those defensive ends are coming from. Big running lanes. That's where Lamar gets a lot of his yards on the ground. Now, what the Bengals did is called rush and retrace. So instead of pushing up and squeezing on the quarterback, what they do is they push up and then they turn around and they run straight back to the line of scrimmage. And what that does is that closes off those running lanes. And instead of pushing up and then trying to close and then chasing Lamar as he leaves the pocket, basically what they're doing is they're running back to their spot on the line of scrimmage, which if Lamar's here and this defensive end runs up and stops here and then comes back, if Lamar tries to go into the gap that he left, this guy is getting there before Lamar. Normally it would be this guy runs here, this guy ends up chasing, Lamar runs, and then the defensive end ends up chasing, and a DN's not going to catch Lamar from behind. Just ain't going to happen. So they're going to retrace back to the line of scrimmage. Lamar will end up trying to run into that. And then if he can't get past that guy, now he's got to retreat back to his same spot, and you've got help coming from behind. So fully expect that. Sexy, welcome in. Appreciate it. Deadman23, welcome in. Appreciate the follow. Thank you so much. So when they do that rush and retrace, going to cause problems for Lamar. Lamar's going to have a decision in that situation. He's either got to stay in the pocket, knowing that those guys are going to retrace back to the line of scrimmage, continue to keep his eyes downfield and know that he's not going to be able to do it. And that's going to still allow them to be able to get pressure. So he's either going to stay in the pocket, be disciplined about staying in the pocket and throwing downfield, while also being able to manage the pass rush, or he's going to have to see that rush. And as soon as that rush comes up, then he's got to get out. And one of the scheme things that you can do, plays that you can call, is QB draws, because when you let those guys rush, it's a hike, and then just let Lamar go. So I fully expect Minnesota to steal that tactic. They do have the corners that could potentially manage this as long as they're not overly aggressive. It depends on what they're taught by Zimmer. I think Zimmer is going to come into this with a good game plan. They're going to be able to attack the protections. The Baltimore offensive line, it looked good for a couple of games, in my opinion, and then there's still some shaky stuff happening. When we talked about it last week, I think Mike Zimmer is the best in the NFL at attacking protections and getting a free guy through. And I think that's going to be one of the things. And they're always, that free guy is going to come in the middle. Basically, he's going to give some looks. He's not going to try to get guys around the edges. He wants that free guy to come in the middle and then allow those defensive ends to rush and retrace, and kind of play a little bit of contain while still being aggressive in their pass rush. This is all about the Vikings playing close games for me. I do think that the Vikings have an opportunity to win this game. So this is one of those games where I would be on upset alert, because the matchups do say that the Vikings can potentially run on this Baltimore defense. So Baltimore is, where'd they go? Baltimore's defense is 24th overall in defensive DVOA. They are 23rd in the pass and 15th against the run. So you can run against them, and it's actually easier to throw on them. Marlon Humphrey will probably get Jefferson today, and then Thielen should end up having a really good game because of that. And KJ Osborne is kind of the wild card in this. Maybe some tight end action for the Vikings too, because they are going to have some opportunities to throw the ball as well. Because when Marlon Humphrey is just locked on one person, the Vikings will be able to move some guys around and get Marlon Humphrey where they want. They'll be smart about that. So I like the Vikings a lot in this game. I don't know if I'm there to call a win for them, but this is not going to be an easy game for the Ravens. So taking Vikes +6 in this. Sexy. Yes, we already went through Dallas and Denver. I can highlight that one real quick for you if you're still there. Before we go on to the next game, since you're always here, Sexy, we can hit the highlights of it. And don't forget, we'll always go back through everything else at the end of it as well. So for me, Sexy, the Broncos Cowboys, I'm taking Denver +10, and there's a couple of reasons for that. So one, Denver's run defense is not that great. their pass defense is a little bit better. I think the Cowboys probably don't want to put a ton of work on Dak and hand him the ball a ton to be able to put a lot of pressure on that calf. They probably are going to nurse it a little bit. You can run on the Denver defense, so why wouldn't you run guys like Ezekiel Elliott, and Tony Pollard? Plus, you're going to have the advantage up front as a Cowboys with the Cowboys in their offensive line. Von Miller is no longer there. Is Chubb back yet? Not that it matters. Not that I think that it's a big deal, but I've been trying to keep an eye on when Chubb's going to come back, and I don't know what it looks like for them. Drew Lock's out for COVID protocols today, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. Let's see. Noah Fant is out. That hurts them. The reason I like them to cover. Oh, I did. Wait, yes, he played last week. Who played last week? Chubb? Chubb's on injured reserve still. No? Um, he played last week? Chubb, how? Chubb's on injured reserve, I thought. Am I wrong? Yeah, Chubb's still on IR. Nick Chubb. Or not, no. Sorry. Bradley Chubb, not Nick Chubb. We're talking about the defensive end for the Broncos. Bradley Chubb is expected to return after the bye week. Got it. Yeah. Sorry, crossover. Confusing. I'm talking about Bradley Chubb. You're talking about Nick Chubb. Yeah. No, my bad. I should have been clearer about Chubb because we're talking about the Broncos. So Chubb's still on IR. He's not back yet. Should be back after the Broncos bye week. I like Denver to cover this sexy simply because I do think that the Cowboys are going to run a good amount in this game. Now, my concern about that is it kind of like the Carolina game? Now that I'm thinking sexy, now that I'm thinking it through a little bit, like I'm going back to the Carolina game where they were able to run the ball a good amount and they basically just took over that game. Though I will say Carolina and Sam Darnold could not get anything going on offense. I do think that the Broncos having Jerry Jeudy back is going to be beneficial. I do think they'll be able to run it a little bit with Gordon and Williams, the Broncos, which will help contribute to them staying in the game. And I think Denver ends up covering, but Cowboys still end up winning. And I think Jerry Jeudy plays a big role in that. He may not play a big role in terms of stacking up a ton of stats in that particular game, but I do think that Jerry Jeudy's ability to get open against man coverage is going to be huge against this Cowboys defense. He's definitely going to see a lot of digs, but I also feel like Diggs is probably going to underplay this a little bit because Judy's a better receiver than he may be anticipating. I can't see into the psyche of Trayvon Diggs, but when you look at film, Jeudy doesn't pop off, but then all of a sudden he ends up open all the time, and Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to hit. The one good thing about Teddy Bridgewater is he can hit open receivers. He throws with a good amount of anticipation, not afraid to throw over the middle with that anticipation, and he's fairly accurate with the ball. So he's accurate with the ball. You could say that. So yeah. To be fair, Diggs did have to guard Jeudy at Bama, if that means anything. That's actually a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Crossover. So yeah, you're probably right. He definitely has a good idea of what Judy's capable of. So yeah, I like Denver to cover. I feel like that one's one of my least confident picks of the week. Because that game could end up going over the 10 if the Cowboys do end up playing some pretty good defense. But I like that. I like I like the Cowboys more in that game. I just don't know that they can. I just like Denver to be able to at least keep it close. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to Browns Bengals. Sorry, crossover. Now I see why you were thinking of Chubb. So Browns Bengals. So no OBJ, as we talked about, right? This is an interesting game because the Browns are 4-4. What are Bengals are what? 6-2, 5-3. Bengals are 5-3. Browns are 4-4. the North is very, very compact right now. Baltimore leads the division at 5-2. Cincinnati's second at 5-3. Steelers at 4-3, which I still think Steelers are probably the worst team in the division. Browns at 4-4. This is a game where the Browns are going to have to be very, very smart about how they play this. And it really comes down to their defense and how well their defense plays, because we know what Cleveland's going to do on offense. We know they're going to run the ball, and they should have some success running the ball today. Offensive line is a good matchup against the Bengals defensive line. Bengals defensive line isn't bad. It's just I really like the Browns offensive line in this particular matchup. Um, I think Cincinnati's going to have to change up kind of how they want to play defense. And I'm curious. I want to look at the official, well, not technically official stats, but um, so Cincinnati typically plays a 7-man box 34% of the time. That's eighth most in the league. Light box 58% of the time, which is 14th in the league. And they only stack the box 9% of the time, which is 25th in the league. They usually line up in, they split between a 1 high, 2 high shell. They'll run mostly, they'll run a good split between man and zone, but they do like to run an open middle of the field. And so what that means is they like to play 2 high in coverage. So when we talk about this, and we've never really talked about this before, when I say a 2 high shell, 1 high shell, that means pre-snap, right? They're either 1 high pre-snap or 2 high pre-snap. And 2 high is basically anything that's cover 2, quarters, cover 4, whatever you want to call it. And single high means cover 3 or single high safety in the middle of the field. That's how the shell is what they line up at pre-snap. Post-snap, and this is something that I feel like people don't talk about a lot, or at least they don't use this terminology. It's used a lot more in the football world than I see it on like Twitter. But whenever you talk about middle of the field closed or middle of the field open, all that means is closed is a single high safety, open is 2 high safeties. So is the middle of the field deep open because you've got 2 high safeties, or is it closed because you've got a single high safety? Um, and that's post snap. The difference between the 2 high, 1 high or 2 high shell versus middle of the field open or middle of the field closed. It's the same thing. You're essentially saying the same thing. Single high or 2 high safeties. It's just pre snap, post snap. It's the difference. So the Bengals like to run a good amount of 2 high post snap. So that means that they like to run a good amount of light boxes. So for them to play the Browns, they're going to have to their defensive line is going to have to play out of their mind. Their linebackers are going to have to play out of their mind, and they're going to have to change up what they want to do on defense in terms of how they run their secondary. It just doesn't feel like a great matchup for them. Um, the Browns should have some success running the ball just based off of them continuing to do what they normally do. And I do think that Baker is is easily good enough as a quarterback. Don't care what Steve Smith says. He ain't the reason that. I mean, Baker might be the reason Odell's leaving, but it's not like it's because Baker is a bad quarterback. He's not a top 5 quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but Baker was good enough to win you games. And this offense doesn't run through him. So another reason why OBJ is probably pissed off is because it's run first and it runs through the offensive line and the running backs. Then it's Baker and then it's the wide receiver. So he was kind of SOL from the start there. So yeah, I like the Cleveland offense to be able to move the ball a good amount. As long as they don't turn the ball over, they're going to be fine. They should be able to score a good amount of points. Now flip that around and go to the Bengals offense. And I still don't trust Zach Taylor yet. Their offensive line is still pretty bad. Myles Garrett is the type of player that every week we talk about. He could wreck this game. I thought he was going to wreck the game last week against the Steelers. Turned out they had just enough, and the Steelers came in with the perfect game plan. Run the ball, try to keep it close, make it in like an old AFC North, AFC Central, grind it out, meat and potatoes, old man, lunch pail, whatever, idiom or cliche you want to use. They wanted to make it that type of game, make it physical, make it hard for any team to score points, and edge out a huge a huge but close win in a low scoring game. And I think the Steelers did exactly what they wanted to do there. So, really interesting matchup in that the Bengals are going to want to try to put it on this Cleveland defense and attack the secondary. They need to have an extra plan for Myles Garrett, and the Browns hopefully will have a plan to move Myles Garrett around to make it harder to identify where he's coming from. They will move him around a good amount. It's not like Myles Garrett only lines up over the left tackle. However, I think they might have to, depending on how they see Cincinnati scheme up their blocking and their protections, they may have to move Myles Garrett around a little bit more than what they typically do. And the reason I say that is against the Ravens, who the Bengals knew were going to blitz the daylights out of Joe Burrow. The Bengals did a good job of bringing a tight end into the backfield and having a running back, and those guys would sit side saddle to Burrow in the shotgun, and they would do chips, catch the leaky, guys coming through on the offensive line, helping out with extra man and protection. I don't think the Bengals are as prepared to do that. Zach Taylor has shown that when he thinks that they can block him up front, he's going to leave Burrow out to dry. So I'm a little bit nervous about that for the Bengals. I do think that the Bengals could put up 40 potentially because of how good their weapons are and Joe Burrow is on offense. I don't trust Zach Taylor, and I don't trust this offensive line to hold up well the entire game. So could be a couple weird turnovers that happen in this one, because that's when those type of things tend to happen. So super fascinated by this game. I think at the moment, for me, I lean Browns to win this. And the line has now moved back to +2, so good timing for us. Oh, the Vikings line also moved to +7 now. So interesting. So if we go back here and change this is now -7 for the Ravens. So we'll take that. And then the Browns Bengals has moved to -2 for the Bengals. These odds are all via DraftKings live right now, by the way. And if you don't believe me here, I'll show you so that you can see that I'm not jipping you, that I'm not changing in the middle of this. Right here. Browns Bengals +2. I'm taking Browns +2, Vikings +7. I would take them at +6 as well, which is what it was before. But that extra point that it's moved in the last hour, hour and a half, is huge. Huge to get a full 7 instead of just a 6. Because this means the difference, if this goes to overtime for whatever reason, the difference in overtime, max is 6. Max is 6 because they don't kick the extra point, right? It's either going to be a 3-point or a 6-point game. So I'm taking those. Crossover. I like the Browns too, as long as Chase doesn't have a big play TD. I like their chance. I think the Browns know better, and I think you're going to see Chase start having a harder time because people are going to say, "Hey, we have to take away Chase, and we've got to take away the deep ball." The problem is that the Bengals do a good job of running Chase in those big over routes that take him all the way across the field, and they have to bring in extra protection to be able to block those up and allow Burrow the time that he needs to be able to throw those long developing routes like that. And that's really hard for anybody, whether it's zone or in man, to be able to track Chase all the way across the formation in those deep over routes. So I would look for them to hit one of those. Chase is really good about those whenever Burrow escapes the pocket and rolls to his right. And if Chase is on his left, trailing him all the way across the formation, it's where a lot of their big plays end up happening as well. So fun matchup, interesting game. I do like Cleveland to win this one. So I'm taking Browns +2 on this particular one. Let me get my notes. All right, let's keep it moving. We're almost halfway through the game, so this should put us about halfway. Buffalo, Jacksonville. Not going to spend a whole lot of time here. No Harrison Smith. I think that's why the line moved. All right. Look, Harrison Smith's a good player. I don't think he's worth a full point. The reasons behind me liking the Vikings in this game has everything to do with The Vikings just continuing to play close games, the way that they play on defense, those type of things. And sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the background. Um, yeah, yeah. It's just I think the Vikings are going to be able to run the ball effectively against the Ravens. I think they're going to have a good game. The game plan of their defense is really more around what they do with their defensive ends and how they rush and how they blitz up the middle. Harrison Smith obviously plays into that a good amount. But for me, it just Harrison Smith doesn't change my pick for them to cover. Like it doesn't mean that they're going to go from 6 points down to 7 points down for me. So not scared of that one. All right, Bills Jags. So for me, excuse me. Bills Jags is 14 and a half. This feels like one of those games where the remember that stretch of games where the Bills were just absolutely just destroying teams. I feel like this is the type of team that they were playing during those. I mean, at the beginning of the year, everybody was going, "Hey, are the Bills actually any good?" Because they haven't played anybody, and I'm going, "Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good because they're not just going in and beating bad teams by a touchdown here and there. They're going in and thumping these teams in their own places, right? So they went into Miami 135 nothing. Washington 43-21, Houston 40 to nothing, Kansas City 38-20. I just don't see, and that was when Kansas City was playing really, really poorly. I just don't, and still kind of are. They beat Miami 26-11 last week. That was a little bit different of a game. Like they had some stupid plays that kept that game closer than what it should have been. There's nothing about this game to me that says that the Jags can stay within 14 points. Just don't see it. The Bills are a good all around football team. I The Jags they're not good enough in the secondary to cause Josh Allen any problems. They're not good enough up front to cause him or the offensive line of the Bills any. Basically, the Bills don't have a tough game until they get to New Orleans in week 12. People are going to say, "Oh, they play Indianapolis in week 11." Don't care. They'll beat the daylights out of Indianapolis. So they get let's look at it this way. The Bills get Miami, Jacksonville, New York Jets. Those are the next 3 games starting today. Then they get Indy, still going to beat the daylights out of them. New Orleans without a quarterback. Okay, not that concerned. Although their defense should give the Bills some problems on offense. That'll be the fun part of that particular matchup. That's a Thursday night game too in week 12. Then they get the Pats. Might be an interesting and I'll say this. I like Tampa Bay in week 14 to be able to beat the Bills. The reason for that, and this is going to sound like a weird reason, but hear me out. The reason for that is they play New England in week 13. The Bills play New England in week 13. The Pats in week 13 will have a good game plan against the Bills. And they may lay the blueprint for what Tampa Bay can and can't do based on how New England plays that game, specifically on defense. So when Tampa Bay gets to watch film of New England the week before, they're going to know how they want to attack the Bills and how they should be able to attack the Bills. That's going to be a great study lesson for them the week before Tampa Bay and Buffalo play in Tampa Bay. So I like Tampa Bay to win that game already in week 14. I've been waiting, but like seeing how these teams are going, I think Tampa Bay and Buffalo are really close in terms of how good they are, and I like the idea of Tampa Bay winning that week. So, yeah, it's not a great game whenever I go into talking about other games, but I'm taking Bills plus 14 and a half. I'd probably take Bills at plus 18, plus 20 maybe. I don't have any faith in I don't have any faith in Jacksonville right now. Um, is James Robinson playing? Questionable. Test out his injured heel pregame warmups. Increasingly pessimistic that he'll be able to play. I mean, they're going to be able to stop James Robinson even if he does play, and I just don't like. I just don't like James. Just Robinson is officially out. Okay. Well, in that case, 14 and a half, easy. Because there's nothing like when they put the Bills are going to be able to twist up Trevor Lawrence pretty good in this game, I think. And it's not going to be pretty for Jacksonville to watch. And it doesn't mean that Trevor's not a good player. It means that he's a rookie and he's playing against one of the better defenses in the league. Not just defenses, but in terms of talent, but coaching as well, which is huge. Um, all right, cool. Texans Fins. So, like I said, normally I would blow right past this game, but there's a couple things I do want to talk about here. As we're about halfway through, we got an hour and 15 minutes, probably about an hour. Might try to end this, like get you guys out of here a little bit early, give you some time to get in front of the TV for the games if you're not already. So, Houston, Miami. Um, Tyrod Taylor starting for Houston. And for a team and organization that has been really poor in decision making overall, right? So trading away picks and adding extra players, and now they're trying to trade away those players that they and getting less for them. They have been historically bad at decision making, and I think this is another bad decision. You have Davis Mills, young player drafted in the second round. Like he's not playing horribly. He's playing okay, especially for a rookie. Um, why bring Tyrod in? Why? Because you want to win the game? I mean, okay, fantastic. But why? Why do you want to win this game? All you're going to do is hurt your positioning for a draft pick. And here's the thing. Even if you're not going to take a quarterback, if for whatever reason you end up with the first overall pick and you're like, "Hey, I don't want to take a quarterback." That first overall pick is still super valuable to somebody else that you could trade out of to get more picks, which you need because your team is horrible and you need more picks than you do one great player. If you really want to improve your team. So, this is a game that neither Houston nor Miami should want to win. Miami wants to win because their coaching staff feels like they're playing for their jobs right now, which they probably are, to be fair. And Brian Flores is not the type that is going to tank a game. It's just not in his personality. So this feels like a game that Miami wants to win more than Houston. However, when you put Tyrod in, you now make Houston a team that is capable of winning a game or two and being a pain in the ass for other teams and even in losses. Before you write the Texans off and they're probably going to lose by double digits. Now you bring Tyrod in, and there's potential that they could actually win. Remember, Houston in Week 1 looked like they were not the worst team in the NFL whenever Tyrod played. Tyrod gets hurt, Davis Mills comes in, and now they just lose. And I think they're horrible against the spread right now too. So not only are they losing, they're losing worse than what everybody thinks they should be losing by. Um, that's pretty fascinating to me. I'm stunned because if that's me, I'm going, of course Davis Mills is going to play. At this point, there's no reason to play Tyrod. No reason to play Tyrod. Let your rookie get in there, earn some reps, especially against a team that's not very good in Miami, that can't really rush the passer. So this is a good game for Mills to kind of be able to work through his progressions and work on those specific things. And you can call some plays to help him do that, but could potentially test him in the secondary because Xavier Howard and Byron Jones are both pretty good cornerbacks, right? So could have been a good matchup for Davis Mills to actually get some good reps in. I just don't understand the idea of putting Tyrod in here. Just makes no sense. Sexy, I like KC running back Gore today. Another question: Lamb or Cooper? Ooh, um, I have Cooper in one league and Lamb in another. So, um, hmm. I I've got to say, I don't know, man. I don't know because if I'm looking at this matchup, I don't. It's usually Cooper on the left. Um, It's usually Cooper on the left, Lamb on the right. It's typically how they line up. I'm going to go Cooper because I think Cooper's skill set is a little bit different. Honestly, I feel like I feel like these are both um I feel like these are both really good options today against Denver. If they decide to pass the ball. Problem is I don't know that they decide to pass the ball because this is going to be one of those games where Lamb may not get targeted, but when he does get targeted, it's going to be on a bomb or two. So he may have like 2 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown, whereas Cooper is probably going to have like 7 for 80 and maybe not a touchdown. So this feels like one of those games where what each of those players do really well is highlighted because Lamb's going to get open deep, and I feel like Cooper is going to have Cooper probably gets the majority of the targets in this particular game. But when Lamb does get targeted, it's going to be big boy plays. So I don't think you can go wrong with either. If it's PPR, I would definitely lean Cooper. Uh, if it's not PPR, Lamb probably has more likely to. All you need is one big catch and a touchdown from Lamb, which feels very likely. I shouldn't say very likely. It feels fairly likely today. Right now, your fantasy consists of Dak, Cooper, Schultz, Zeke screen pass. That's funny. That's funny. Schultz is out today, right? Is it Schultz or Jarwin that's out? It doesn't really matter. So, let's see. It's not that important to the actual game itself. I just can't remember because one of them just got put on IR. Jarwin. Okay, got it. Yep. Cool. And everybody's talking about Michael Gallup coming back. I think Cedric Wilson's been phenomenal for the Cowboys. They have an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver, just like the Bucks do. So even with Michael Gallup out, Cedric Wilson's been great in my opinion. All right, back to Texans fence. So so we know Tyrod's starting, right? And now all of a sudden Tua is out for today. Apparently has a broken bone in his finger, going to be out. Jacoby Brissett is going to get the start. We've seen, sexy. That's going to be a fun game to talk about. We'll get there in a couple of games. So in sexy, I would love to understand why do you think the Eagles are going to lock up the Chargers? So be prepared to drop that in chat whenever we get to that game, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts. For the Fins, Jacoby Brissett starts. Now, the reason this is a big deal is because the Fins offense is totally different depending on the quarter. The two quarterbacks are so different that they could call the exact same plays, but the way the quarterbacks play the position is so different for the Dolphins between Brissett and Tua that it changes the offense dramatically. With Tua, you're getting tons of outs, specifically speed outs. And Tua is going to throw those all day long, and then they're going to run a slant off of it. And they've done it a couple times, and they've done it 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks. Teams will sit on those outs, and then they run a slant. So they're waiting for that out breaking route, and then all of a sudden it's an in breaking route, and they lose Devontae Parker or whoever it might be, and he ends up with a 25-yard gain up the middle because he ran a slant instead of an out. They love to run those. And Tua's actually pretty good at throwing those because he'll hit his back foot and he puts everything into it and throws that out route and does so with pretty good accuracy. Tua's actually fairly accurate. It's not like he's not accurate on those short to intermediate throws. He is fairly accurate there. Brissett, on the other hand, I don't think he's ever hit the top of his drop and thrown the ball on time in a single play in his entire life. That dude loves to hold on to the ball, and you cannot do that behind this Eagles offensive line, or Eagles, sorry, behind this Dolphins offensive line. They are like catastrophically bad, type of bad. And so for me, it's can Brissett actually throw decently enough on time today to be able to beat this Texans cover 2 defense that they love. Run more cover 2 than any team in the NFL right now. Or probably in the last few years. I want to look specifically at what their numbers look like. Too high shell 58% of the time, zone coverage 67% of the time, which is 4th most in the NFL. Open middle of the field open coverage, so too high safeties 46% of the time, 3rd most in the league. Rush 4 87% of the time, which means they don't blitz, 2nd most in the league. Least amount of blitzes in the NFL. Just the softest defense that you can imagine. And that's perfect for a guy like Tua. Not as good for a guy like Brissett, who likes to hold on to the ball and wait for a bigger play and look for the bigger play. So this is actually a little bit worse of a matchup for the Dolphins. Makes me lean even harder into the Texans in this particular game. This should not be 5.5. It's already moved to 4. So I'm still gonna take the Texans at -4. Or I'm sorry, the Texans at +4. And the reason for that is I just think that with Tyrod in and Tua out and Brissett in, it just changes the whole dynamic of how these games go. So yeah, I like this one. I'm taking Texans. Texans probably even get the upset here. And then people are going to come calling for Mr. Brian Flores' job. Which, by the way, if for some reason Todd Bowles leaves and gets a head coaching job, and Brian Flores loses his job, come on, Brian Flores. You are now the new defensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Thank you very much. Continue to the dynasty. Or at least that's what I would plan on doing. Because if he's out of a job, he is more than worth his salt as a defensive coordinator. And I love the idea of promoting from inside for the Bucs, but if you get an opportunity at Brian Flores, you got to take it. He's too good as a defensive coordinator. They just got to figure out what the hell they need to do. Like, they need to name one offensive coordinator and say, this is your job. You are calling the plays. Be done with it. Stop with all this running game coordinator, passing game coordinator, and oh, by the way, the quarterback's coach also gets a say in play calling bullshit that they're doing. If everybody's leading, nobody's leading. And right now, nobody's leading on that team. Brian Flores included, because he's the one allowing the offensive staff to do what they're doing. So he's got to make a call and say, let's stop all this bullshit. And let's just let them one person call the play. I think Gore continues with carries. I think Tyrod and Texans get a W today. I think so too. I think both of these teams are pretty bad. I think the Texans overall are a terrible team, but I think Tyrod makes them feisty enough, especially against a bad Dolphins team and a bad matchup because now Brissett's in because Tua's not playing. So we'll see. But the problem is Houston only has to rush 4 to be able to get pressure, and it's going to cause Brissett problems. Because that offensive line in Miami is so bad. All right, Raiders Giants. Oh man. So we talked about this one a little bit the other day. So when we talk about matchups, Giants can get a little bit of pressure up front, not a ton, a little bit. Raiders offensive line, good at pass blocking, bad at run blocking, continues to be the case. We say that every week. They're good enough in the secondary to be able to hold some guys there. My question is can the secondary and the linebackers stop Daniel Jones in those smaller underneath passes? I don't think they have a ton of problems stopping the Giants. Giants they're not great on offense. They're not in phase. They don't have a running game. The offensive line's not great. Everything feels very disjointed and laborsome on offense. Like they don't. It's when they get a big play that goes for a score, you're so surprised whenever it happens. They're so surprised whenever it happens because it doesn't have. It feels like they're like, oh shit, that gotta happen. Sorry, hit mute. Got excited. They're like, oh shoot, it happened on accident. Like, I really didn't mean to do that, and good for them when it happens, but it's not. it's not part of their offense. It's not like it's schemed into their offense. It just kind of accidentally happens because Daniel Jones isn't that bad of a quarterback. Um, he's played pretty well this season. On defense, they can be attacked. Their corners aren't terrible. They can be attacked a little bit on the defense, and I think the Raiders are going to be able to do that just fine. I said it earlier in the week. I think Bryan Edwards is due for a big come up. He's played pretty well behind Ruggs, who obviously is no longer with the team, was released this week after some horrific decision making. I like the Raiders in this game. I know it's in New York, but the Raiders are so much a better football team than the Giants. I don't think it's even close in this game. Score prediction for Cowboys Broncos games, Typhoon. Actual score prediction 27-20 Cowboys. Yeah, it feels about right. 27-20. Well, I don't even know what's the total for that game. Total is 50. That's right at it. Yeah. 27-20. Because I think the Cowboys are going to run a good amount, and I think Denver actually probably wants to run a good amount as well. I think that's probably how they feel like they need to slow down this Cowboys offense. So yeah, 27-20 feels. I like that. Feel pretty confident about that one. I'm terrible at picking the specific scores, but feel pretty confident about that one. Raiders just overall much better team. The question I have about this Raiders Giants game, the one time I've watched the Raiders and went, wow, they don't look very good, was when they were distracted. It was the week it was Gruden's last game coaching, and he was already dealing with all the news around everything that he had said. And the emails had started to come out, and they looked totally distracted in that game and did not look like they were on the ball. So with the Ruggs thing happening, I'm a little nervous about picking the Raiders because they could potentially be distracted. Now, I will say I love me some Rich Bisaccia, fully behind him as a potential head coaching candidate. He's not the like schematic genius that you're thinking of. If he's got good coordinators, I think he's going to be just fine as a head coach because he's a guy that can rally a team. Players are going to love him not because he's like a rah like players type of coach. He just oozes football out of every pore, and everybody knows how genuine and how intelligent he is. Like he lives and breathes the game. And he understands his job is to put his players in a position to be successful. He can't make them be successful. He has to help them be successful for themselves. Does a great job with that. So yeah, I think the Raiders are in a good spot. I believe in Rich Bisaccia to get his team through this and over the hump this week. If they can pull out a good win here and stay focused, I think that's a big deal. People are going to say, "Oh, they just beat the Giants," but that's to come out of this and play the Giants and get a win. The Giants are good enough to beat the Raiders if the Raiders aren't on their A game. I don't think the Giants are a good football team, but they can beat some good teams because they have some bright spots throughout their lineup. So, but yeah, this is gonna be it for the Raiders. After New York, they're gonna start getting a lot of they got Kansas City, they got Cincinnati, they got Dallas in their next three. They get Washington, which is a little bit of a break, but then they get KC, Cleveland, and then they get a little bit of a break with Denver and Indy, and then finish up the season with the Chargers. So this is it, man. This is a big part of the season. We're gonna find out what the Raiders are made out of in the next couple of weeks. So I'm gonna take Raiders. I'm gonna take Raiders -3 in this game. Make a note. Renfro, sexy Renfro or Edwards for a TD. I'm gonna go both actually. Renfro's not the TD type unless they get down inside the 5 or inside the 10. but I like Edwards to come up with a big play. I don't think the Giants are going to be prepared for Edwards because I do think that Edwards is going to be he's a talented player, I think. All right. I got what did I take? Where's Houston, Miami? I'm taking Houston +4. Houston +4. I actually think that they probably end up winning that game, and I'm taking Las Vegas -3. All right, Chargers Phillies. Sexy. Give me your why. So tell me why. Tell me why you think the Eagles lock up the Chargers. I'll get into this game. So again, we talked about it a little bit in the opening. I think the Chargers people have fallen off the Chargers bandwagon. You know, Mister uh, Brandon Staley has the clips are not as plentiful. The audio clips are not as plentiful as they used to be. Um, it, the Chargers have lost a couple of games specifically because of their run defense. And the hope was that they would get it figured out over the bye week, and then they most certainly did not. They end up losing to the Patriots last week, right? And the sheen has come off, right? Justin Herbert not making as many big time throws, and I feel like that's something we got to talk about too, right? Is one of the big uh one of the big things for the success of the Chargers was that Justin Herbert in high leverage situations was being very successful in those situations. So big third down plays, big fourth down plays, like to a degree where it probably wasn't sustainable. And that's where we got to, right? Is they were so highly successful that they've started to regress a little bit in terms of being as successful in those high leverage situations. If that happens, the Chargers are very, very hard to beat. The Eagles, on the other hand, Eagles have rolled with Jalen Hurts. They've beat bad teams. They seem to struggle against good teams. They've decided that they kind of want to run the football. I still don't believe that that's actually the case. I still don't believe that they actually feel like they want to run the football. That offensive line is fantastic. Like, I love that offensive line. I think it's one of the better offensive lines in the NFL in both pass blocking and run blocking, which is huge. I just don't know that Jalen Hurts. So if Jalen Hurts has to win this game today, Eagles can't win it. It's not Jalen Hurts. He's gonna get picked off 2 or 3 times if they try to put this in Jalen Hurts' hands. Um, they're gonna run a lot of RPO, which is gonna be fitting for Jalen. I question the Chargers' ability to be able to stop the run, but I think that the Eagles can't get out of their own way. Um, and this feels like to me the Chargers are a much better team than the Eagles overall. And I trust the Chargers coaching staff much more than I trust the Eagles coaching staff. So to me, for this to be a +2, +1 type of game, I feel like it's a trap game. I feel like, and it is now moved to a pick'em game. People are all over the Eagles. I mm, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Sorry, sexy. I'm I think the Eagles have some good parts. I don't think the Eagles have great parts. And I don't think they have good coaching right now either. I'm just not a fan of I'm just not a fan of their coaching. The defense is super vanilla. Gannon has been awful. Sirianni's play calling on offense. Sirianni's basically running like the Oklahoma offense right now. Like, he's running a college offense to a degree. And Jalen Hurts is kind of throwing it like a college quarterback too. Like, he's got to see it. He's got to see the open guy. He's got to. I just man, I can't believe people are all over the Eagles on this. I Something is weird about this game. Either I'm way off on Chargers and Eagles both as teams, or Vegas is way off on them. And this will be a correction game for Vegas if I end up being right on this. I feel like the Chargers are probably a touchdown, should be a touchdown favorite in this, not a pick 'em. And they were, they were only a 2 point. They were only a 2 point. I feel like there's something. The Eagles aren't strong where they have a potential advantage. I just don't understand like what. I don't understand what about this game that I'm missing. Is there an injury that I'm missing? Is there a coaching set? Is there a COVID situation? I have no idea why the Eagles would be a pick 'em in this game. Chargers should end up being, like I said, should be a 6 point favorite to me. Is there an overreaction to the Eagles and them putting it on the Lions last week? Because it shouldn't be. The Eagles, we called that one. You think your Eagles run? Why? I why I just, for me, they've chosen to pass when they don't need to run. Last week, game script obviously helped them, or game flow obviously helped them, right? When you're up huge with the Lions, you end up being able to run, which Hurts, by the way, still was the leading rusher with 71 yards last week. They ran against Vegas a little bit. Hurts again, 61 yards as the leading rusher. Like they don't have a leading rusher. They don't have a rusher over 82 yards. Hurts rushed for 82 yards against the Niners in week 2. Chargers defense overrated? I mean, maybe that's possible, but their inability to stop the run is huge. This will tell me how horrible Sirianni is as a coach. If they come out and they decide that they want to throw it with Hurts on in the first couple of drives and they just let him sling it all over the yard, brother, we got to talk about Sirianni and how long he's going to stick around, because that just does not make sense to me. You got a team that is pretty good against the pass on defense, but they are horrible against the run on defense. I'm looking up let's see. Los Angeles Chargers. They are 12th overall in total DVOA on defense. They are 32nd, dead last against the run. They are 4th in defense against the pass in DVOA. This says run the daylights out of the football. And I don't have any faith that the Eagles and Nick Sirianni are going to call that type of a game plan. I think they feel like they're going to need to come out and throw. And I wouldn't advise that, because I think that this defense is built to stop this type of passing game and these type of wide receivers. Typically, we talk about how the Eagles will be successful because of their speed at wide receiver. I don't think that their speed is a huge advantage for them in this against the secondary. So I got to go Chargers, man. Like I said, this just seems like a weird line to me. Chargers are a pick 'em. I don't get it. I just don't get it. All right, let's move along. Sexy, unless there's something that you have in terms of like, I'm curious to say why you think your Eagles lock up the Chargers. Curious. All right, let's keep it moving. We may come back to that if Sexy wants to continue. You hurt my feelings, Sexy. I hurt your feelings every week. Were you? I don't know if you were here. Die. I don't know if you were here last week. I said everybody else is on the Lions, and I think they're crazy for being on the Lions, because I think the Eagles match up very, very well against the Lions, and that this is going to be an easy game for the Eagles. And I get why people were on the Lions, but not there. So I was there. I don't know if you were here last week, but I was on the Eagles last week, if that makes you feel any better. Patriots have a good running game, and the Chargers did a pretty solid job. It was okay. I think the Patriots did a good job of realizing that they're just not going to be able to, that just turning around and handing it off isn't the ideal way to do it. They found a few ways around it, in particular getting the ball to the edges in those shorter throws. But yeah, like I just don't trust the Eagles coaching staff to do what is the obvious game plan here, and then to go out and execute on it. All right, Packers Chiefs. So, what's any news about this game? Anything particular going on? What's quarterbacks? How are the quarterbacks in this game? How are they doing? Neither are doing particularly well right now. I can tell you that much. Now here's the thing. A couple of things that we've talked about with these two particular teams over the last couple of weeks. This line was originally 2.5 in favor of the Packers. I think obviously, Mr. Aaron Rodgers, who's immunized but clearly not vaccinated now, we know, against the for the coronavirus, is out because he's in COVID protocol. Devontae Adams, however, is back, which is good. The issue is that the Packers aren't going to change. Look, Aaron Rodgers, top 5 quarterback in the NFL, uniquely talented, and a huge piece of this offense and the way that they run it. The drop off for this offense and the way that it is currently run, the drop off from Rodgers to Jordan Love as quarterbacks is probably pretty big, is definitely pretty big, but the actual drop off of the offense between the two, not nearly as big. You're going to see a very similar offense, right? We talked about it. Ball control through both running game, short passes, screens, those type of things. Be prepared for a ton of screens. You'll probably see a decent amount of like RPO from the Packers today with Love in the game. But yeah, the offense isn't going to change. They ball control, throw it up top when the opportunity presents itself. Now, Aaron Rodgers is I'm assuming, because we don't know a ton about Jordan Love, they are going to still take those shots, but Aaron Rodgers is much better at identifying those shots and being successful when taking those shots. Now, probably a little bit less in terms of the shot taking, as well as a little bit less effective. And that's going to be the difference, I think, between Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love and how this game is played. As long as Daniel Sorensen is on the field, Love should be just fine. That is absolutely right. Crossover. Sexy. Kelsey and Tyreek shine. Mahomes going to shine today. I think I like the Huh? How can you say the 3 biggest players for the Chiefs? The 3 biggest players for the Chiefs are going to go out and have and shine today, but you still like the Packers. So we talked about that, right? We talked about Packers ball control offense. We've acknowledged the drop off. Devontae Adams is going to be there, which is always a good guy for Love to go to whenever he needs a big play. The Chiefs typically don't like to try to double people. They prefer to blitz in those situations instead of doubling down on wide receivers and in the secondary. On offense, the Chiefs are going to come out and what we've talked about with the Chiefs is they're going to have to change the way that they play the game. Teams are taking away the deep balls against them, and making it a lot. And it's hard to take away the deep balls, but they're making it a lot harder for them to be successful at doing that. They're not necessarily just saying, "Hey, we're going to give you everything underneath." They're just saying, "Hey, we're going to guard more against that deep ball and those big plays." So basically what this comes down to is the Packers are going to continue to play the same way that they have with Aaron Rodgers on offense. They're going to play their 2 high defense that they like to play softer in their coverage to keep the ball in front of them, make sure Tyreek and Kelsey can't get open over top of you, force Mahomes to go over the middle. The Chiefs are going to have to win ugly going forward. Based on the way teams are playing, they're not going to be able to take those big shots. It's going to be a dink and dunk and smaller plays over the middle. You're no longer 3 plays, 80 yards and a big score. It's now 12 plays, 80 yards and a short score. And you saw that last week against the Giants. The first couple, First drive, they dink and dunk. Great game script, by the way. Exactly what they needed to do coming into that game. Dink and dunk, move the ball around, get to the edges, get a first down, work on getting your first downs, not looking for the touchdown every single time. They had that perfect coming into that first drive. The problem is Mahomes is Patrick. He is Patrick Mahomes. It is his DNA to take those deep shots and those harder throws, and he's got to be more patient with it. He's got to continue to take that first type of drive. If they do that every game, they're still going to score 30 points. They may not score 40 points, but they'll score 30 points, and they'll also wear the defense down because they're going to control the ball a little bit more throughout the game. And by the way, that's going to help their defense too. When they're playing a little bit more ball control instead of those quick strikes, they're going to be on the field less. They're going to have less in terms of, they're going to have more time of possession. Their defense isn't going to be on the field as much. I'm actually curious what the Chiefs' time of possession is right now. Time of possession in NFL. The Chiefs are middle of the pack. They're averaging 30 minutes, 35 seconds. Interesting. Let's see. So teams like the Chargers Chargers are 25th. So like I would have expected them to be in like the 25th type of area. Cincinnati, LAC, Jets, Giants, all kind of in that range. And then look, this is why ball control this is why time of possession is a good indicator of other things happening. Miami, Houston, Philly, Jacksonville, Seattle, bottom 5. Those are teams that have the ball less than 28 minutes a game. That means that their defense is out there for 32, 34, 35 minutes a game. And that is painful for a defense. Packers, on the other hand, are 9th overall. Well, tied for 8th, I guess you could say. 31 minutes, 20 seconds. So Packers going to have the ball a lot. Keep Casey's offense off the field. When Casey's offense is on the field, they're going to keep that. They're going to keep them from taking those dink and dunks or taking those big plays, force the dink and dunks. I think Andy Reid had a great game script. It's can Patrick Mahomes just be patient with it? So, Sexy, I don't think we have a shootout. We might have a shootout in terms of like the defenses can't actually stop each other. The problem is it's going to be 10 play drives, not 3 or 4 play drives. So I like the Packers in this game +7. I don't know that the Packers win this game, but I absolutely do think that they keep it close. Especially with, again, 2 high safeties post snap it causes a lot of problems for Mahomes because Mahomes is not afraid to throw into tight windows. When he's throwing into tight windows, the ball tends to bounce off and bounce around and up in the air. And when you've got 2 high safeties, you got people that can collapse down onto that and traffic around that can have it. I like Aaron Jones and Adams scoring. Sexy. Yeah, I feel like Adams probably has a touchdown today. I don't know about Aaron Jones. Probably because when they get inside of, so especially whenever you have a backup quarterback, when you get inside the 10, teams like to run the ball whenever they have backup quarterbacks in, because the decision making is the time frame is condensed. The windows are tighter once you get inside the 10. The decision making has to be precise, like on point, right? For a team, for a quarterback to be able to do it. It's why Jameis Winston, who isn't the greatest decision maker, struggles inside of the 10. Why we talked about 5-6 weeks ago that Taysom Hill is going to be a weapon inside of the 10-yard line. They don't want Jameis Winston throwing the ball. They will trust Taysom Hill to be able to throw the ball inside of the 10, plus his ability to run the ball and them to be able to run those options, those speed options, the power with the quarterback, change the numbers in terms of blocking up the run game. Like those type of things, they love that inside of the 10 with Taysom Hill. So I could totally see Aaron Jones getting a touchdown today once they get inside the 10. But I do think that this is probably a lower scoring game. What's the 48.5? So yeah, so Vegas says the same thing, right? Vegas doesn't see this as a 50-point game. 48.5 is probably, yeah, right about in the middle of games this week. Yeah. So Vegas doesn't see this as a high scoring game either, as an overly high scoring game. They see it as about average. You know, Mercedes Lewis, Tyler Davis, potentially, DeGuara as tight ends potentially have a interesting play here. I just don't know. I just don't know, man. This is a hard one to pick because without Robert Tanyan, if Tanyan was in, I would say he would have a good game, good potential game here. The way that it is, I'm not really sure. With those guys, I'm not sure that those guys are weapons that are really going to be utilized a lot today. So yeah, I'm going to take Packers +7. I think it's a close game. I think they play this like they have with their ball control. They keep it a close game. Think of like the talking points that we had for the Vikings. Like they tend to play close games. Packers will tend to play close games for the most part, unless it's a bad team that they can beat up on. The Chiefs are going to have to win close games. No more 20-point blowouts. Even without Aaron Rodgers, the offense doesn't change very much. Yeah, I like the Pack. I feel pretty good after going through these with you guys about some of our picks this week, which probably means that we're gonna end up like 0-12 or 0-14 or something this week. Green Bay +7. I don't know why. I just feel like that's still too much. The Chiefs aren't bad. It's just I don't. People are gonna be like, oh, the Chiefs couldn't put away the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. Well, I mean, it's not. It's going to be a very similar offense. They're just not going to ask Jordan Love to take as many chances as Aaron Rodgers might. But he sat long enough. If he's going to be, and by the way, this is a really great point by Andrew Brandt. This is the perfect storm for, this is a perfect storm for the Packers. So Aaron Rodgers out, but he's not injured. He's not technically injured. He's not going to be out. He's out for a game, maybe 2 at most. Aaron Rodgers out. They get to see the future, right? They get to see Jordan Love, see what he's got against an out-of-conference opponent who doesn't have the greatest of defenses, but is good enough that he's going to have to be on it to be able to throw it around this week. So they've got the perfect storm. Like, they're going to get Aaron Rodgers back, but they're going to also get to get a little glimpse of the future, get some real reps, and they got a full week to prepare him. So it's not like he comes in the middle of a game and then doesn't look good because he didn't get the starter reps all week. He got the starter reps. So this is everything that they could want in terms of figuring out if this is the future. So nice little peek for them. All right, that was Packers Chiefs. Cards 49ers. Fascinating game. I really wish Kyler was here. I'm surprised that the 49ers are -3.5. So there's no easy way to look. This to me is, I feel like nobody knows what's going to happen in this game. One, because we don't know if Kyler is actually going to play. And I don't think it's been announced. They said that he's going to give it a go before game time, but everybody is pretty pessimistic about his ability to play today. So it's likely he does not go. It's likely he does not go. And if he doesn't, it's obviously tough against a division opponent, but they're so far ahead in the division that it may not be that big of a deal. Let's see. Sorry, they're not that far ahead. What I meant is they're far enough ahead of the 49ers that it's not a particularly big deal. Now they're 7-1 with the Rams. They're not ahead, they're ahead in the division, but they're tied for first, basically. So, sorry, needed to clarify that. So, we can't go back to the last game and say, oh, the Cardinals and 49ers, they already played. They played a few weeks ago. we can take some stuff from that. No, we can't, because Trey Lance played that game. It was his first start. He did not look good. Arizona play like the whole offense changes whenever Trey Lance is in the game. There's not really a whole lot that you can take from that game other than the 49ers probably won't be able to stop Arizona. Except now it's probably Colt McCoy instead of Kyler Murray. And how does that change the like? This is just such a hard game to play. I will say the one thing, I'm fascinated by Kyle Shanahan versus Vance Joseph in this. I do think Kyle Shanahan has picked up his game calling. I'm curious if he finds something and is willing to stick with it in this particular game, because the last couple times around he hasn't stuck with the things that are working. He'll call a good series and they'll go down and they'll get a touchdown, and then the play calling for the next series will change completely. And I just don't understand why he does that. Um Overall, I think the 49ers are better than 3-4. And I think as they kind of figure things out going throughout, they'll get a little bit better. I still think the NFC West is a brutal division. I don't know why 3.5 points is, I feel like 3.5 points is a lot. Jimmy G starts in this game for the 49ers. Trey Lance is available. So they may have some of those Trey Lance packages in. I think that those could be effective in small doses. They were not as effective in a full dose against the Cardinals before. JJ Watt's not in this game. Everything has changed. I don't have a great feeling about this game, if I'm just being honest. This is one of the games that there's no way I would put a bet on because there's just so much up in the air. I would The fall of the Cardinals continues today. Okay, crossover. Okay, that's a big statement. Very ominous statement. I I think the Niners, without Kyler, I think the Niners probably win this game. My question is by how much? And the reason I say that is if the offense looks as good as it did last week. So we talked about a couple of things, right? So one, Kyle Shanahan not calling the greatest of games previous to last week. Last week, it feels like he found a groove and he got into it and knew what he was doing and was confident in his play calling. It was executed on. And it feels like the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo are finding some sync on offense. And one of the biggest reasons that they've been out of sync is because Jimmy G can't hit a fucking throw. Like there were so many opportunities that he missed earlier in the season that really changed how games are and how they ended up. And all of a sudden he kind of starts hitting some of those throws last week and it looks like they know what they're doing. So I'm leaning 49ers to win. But the Cardinals could come out with just a bomb defense today, run the ball, keep the 49ers off the field, and then they don't have to worry about it. So I feel like anybody that tells you they know exactly how this game is gonna go, I would be leery of, because there's just so many unknowns about this particular game between the Cardinals and the 49ers. I crossover. I've been waiting for their midseason fall for 9 weeks now. The Kingsbury curse is inevitable. I mean, there is a history of the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury starting off well and then fading towards the end of the season. There's a narrative around teams figuring him out. He doesn't adjust, like all of those type of things. Um, I just don't know if the Niners are good enough to stop even Colt McCoy on defense. That's the problem. Yeah, I mean, injuries aren't his fault, but I still think that it's something that you have to actually mention, right? I don't know, man. I'm gonna think about this game. I need to come back to this one because I just don't. Maybe I should just call it and move on. Because most of these games I have a pick before I get on here. This game I didn't have a pick. Because I don't know what the actual what the line is going to be as we go through this, because I try to keep them up to date as we go. I don't know. I don't know. Let me see something. Let's do this. Can I do this? I want to see if I can do this. I'm gonna throw up a poll for you guys. My pick is gonna be whatever you guys pick. So give me 1 second. Let me create a poll here. I need to do this. Does the fact that the 49ers only allowing 17 points in the last matchup change anything for you? Not really, because there were times where it looked like they were just getting whipped, and 17 points isn't something for me that is just crazy, right? Like that it seems that it seems something that is out of the realm of what they it feels like it's more a product of them actually being able to move the ball on offense than it does for their defense, I guess is the best way for me to put that. Let me see here. What are they on DVOA? So on DVOA, San Francisco is 17th overall. They are 22nd against the pass and 7th against the run. And rush defense DVOA, 7th. And then 22nd against the pass. I mean, that feels right? Like I feel like they're more of when the offense is working and can stay on the field. I feel like that's when that particular defense is better. I don't know that they're going to be able to drop a whole bunch, and maybe that's a thing, right? If let me look at this. I want to see what they did last year. One other thing before I pick this game. I'm spending more time on this game than I probably anticipated, and we got 2 other games to get to too. So, what I'm doing is I'm looking up the 49ers schedule. I want to see what the score was whenever they played them last year. So they played Arizona week 1, lost 24-20. Later in the season, they won 20-12 with CJ Beathard at quarterback. Wilson Jr. had 183 yards. Kittle had 92 receiving yards. By the way, Kittle was on a pitch count today, so I would be weary about playing him in your lineups. I know you're probably excited to get him back for fantasy, but yeah, that one's if you got something better, I'd go for it. Manage poll. Here we go. Sorry, this is what I'm. New poll. Let's see. Who are we talking? Cardinals and Niners. How does Cards Niners finish today? I need to, you know what? I need D-Hop not playing and Kittle being back, even though he's on a pitch count. That's a good point about D-Hop not playing. It's something we hadn't talked about. Let's see. 49ers cover -3.5. '49ers win. Cards cover +3.5. No. Man. This is where I need mods, because I can have mods creating polls. It'd be better. I need to get on that. And Arizona wins. All right. Duration 10 minutes. We'll allow it to go 10 minutes. And I will go with whatever chat says. That will be my pick. I'm leaving it up to you. My fate is in your hands. Poll is up. Cards Niners. Tell me how that one ends. And we'll move on to Titans Rams, and then we'll do a recap. So Titans Rams would have been a fascinating matchup had Derrick Henry. I'm so mad that Derrick Henry got hurt before this game. I would have loved to have seen this game and how the Rams end up managing this run game, because they have some of the horses up front to be able to do it. Not sure that they're there. Von Miller, new Ram, may or may not play today. Needs to test out his ankle at game time. Um, Rams -7 feels pretty on point with where this probably should be. I do think that the Titans. I do think the Titans can still move the ball on offense against them. Adrian Peterson coming in to play that Derrick Henry role. Not sure if he gets it done in his first week. Maybe better once he gets maybe into game shape, but he's gonna get the rock today. They're gonna give it to him. And then the Titans at the on the other end, I don't know that they have an answer for the Rams. I think that they probably come in thinking that they have a pretty good game plan, but I'm not really sure that they do. I don't think they're going to be able to get pressure. I don't think they're going to be able to cover on the back end. It's just not a great game. I've got to go Rams -7 here. I just think that without Derrick Henry, this feels like a game where it just feels like a game where it's just not going to work out for him. So I'm going Rams -7. I do think that Vrabel typically comes in with good defensive game plans. I just don't know that he has the talent level on defense to be able to get this done. All right, final game, and then we'll do a recap. We'll finish up our poll, and then we'll be good to go. And then it'll be 1 o'clock, and it'll be kickoff time. So I'm gonna leave that one open. We'll mark Titans Rams off, and we'll come back to Cards 49ers. All right, Bears Steelers. So this game for me really interesting, simply because I do think that the Steelers continue to eke by. I don't think that the Bears are a particularly good team, but when they let Justin Fields do whatever he's supposed like what he should do, I think that Justin Fields. We talked about it earlier this week. When Justin Fields looks good, he looks amazing. When Justin Fields looks bad, he looks really, really bad. And he looks like he's not deserving of being a professional quarterback. So I have talked about how I thought the Bears defense was pretty good as soon as I said that, because they had played a couple of really good games. They turned around and said, no, we're not a very good defense. And oh, by the way, we're especially not a good defense without Khalil Mack. And made it a very hard thing to get behind this team in any way, shape, or form. Steelers are also a team that is hard to get behind in any way, shape, or form because they are not they are not in they continue to eke out and edge out other teams week by week. I don't think that this is a team that I don't think that this is a team that can win a game by 6.5 points. I just don't see enough on offense. When they get Najee Harris going, that's when they're good. Their offensive line is better at run blocking than it is pass blocking. Asa, I can't see the poll, but my pick is Cardinals money line, so it should be at the top of the chat. It should be at the top of the chat. You should be able to click on current poll towards the top. How does Cards Niners finish today? If you click on that, it'll drop down, and then you can make your selection and vote. Bear down, but yeah, gonna get blown out. Doesn't take much these days. I don't never logged on. Appreciate you. I don't think. I just don't think that. I don't have enough faith in the Steelers to do anything special here. Kyler officially out. Okay, that's important. We're in the middle of a poll. Good timing. I can't trust the Steelers offense. I feel like they do enough to eke out wins. The one matchup in this game, never logged on, that I would look at is the Steelers' ability with their fronts and their ability to get pressure. And I think that's probably the only reason why I could take the Steelers -6.5 is because I could see them forcing Justin Fields into a few different turnovers because they can mix up their fronts, bring pressure from different situations. Fields isn't there and identifying those yet. And they're good enough in the secondary to kind of give him some problems. So thinking about it that way, I'm kind of back on the Steelers to cover. Simply because when the Bears have looked bad, it's been really bad because of the pressure up front. Bears aren't going to be able to block the Steelers up front especially with Alonzo Highsmith, TJ Watt being healthy. They did just trade Melvin Ingram, so you know, maybe a little bit worse in terms of that, but they put Melvin Ingram into coverage way too much. He's better as he should be an edge rusher purely, and that's not what they did with him whenever he was there. So yeah, I don't know, man. Justin Fields under the lights. Um, his first big Monday night football game, prime time game. Steelers good front. I don't know that the Steelers are able to do much on offense. Like, I don't know if the Steelers are able to do much on offense. The problem is I think that their defense is good enough to put their offense in scoring situations. And if they can get a turnover or two, whether that's a sack, like probably a sack, fumble, and an interception, I think that's enough to make it work. Because the Steelers and Big Ben isn't going to put up 40 points, but Big Ben is good enough to help his team get to 2021, and I don't know that the Bears can get to 20 or 21. So I don't think it's a blowout, but I do think the Steelers cover. I kind of talked in circles around that, but yeah, I'm gonna take Pittsburgh minus 6.5. All right, that's gonna be it for all of the games. We'll come back to Cards 49ers. I'll let that the poll still has. I set it for 10 minutes, so I'm giving you guys a good amount of time to be able to pick. Again, it should be at the top of the chat. I don't know what it looks like if you're on mobile or anything like that. So we'll see. All right, let's get through them all. Let's go back through every single game of the day. We'll hit the highlights of everything that we talked about and talk about what each individual picks were, and we'll finish out with making our final pick of the Cards 49ers based on what you guys said. If it's a tie, which by the way, right now it looks like it's a tie. If it's a tie, I guess, of course it's going to be. Why wouldn't it be a tie? Yeah, because if it's a tie, that means I get to pick. It means I still have to pick. All right, Jets Colts. So we talked about that one. Game's already over. We got the W there. Wished I'd tweeted out Colts by a million before the game like I wanted to. It was just a bad matchup. The Colts were going to be able to block the Jets up front. That makes their defense look really, really bad. They have enough weapons. Carson Wentz was never going to be under too much pressure, and they were going to be able to run the ball a good amount. So they were going to put up 40. The Jets trying to keep up with the Colts on Thursday night with Mike White was never gonna be there. So make a Twitter poll as a tiebreaker to the Twitch poll. Okay, all right, I might do that. Might do that crossover. I'm from PC, but just refresh the page and polls there. So I voted Cards, even without Murray and Nuke. Okay, Asa. So yeah, so called that indie game really well. The other thing about that particular game was Salah's first game in primetime outside of like the London game. That doesn't really count, I guess, because it's not really primetime. But Indy coming into that game again Thursday nights, it's all about the coaching staff that can get it done in a shorter amount of time. And I had way more faith in Frank Reich and his staff to be able to get it done that particular week. So Colts by 10.5 is what we went with. Got the W there. Atlanta, New Orleans, Saints defense is gonna be good enough to get it done. Even with Trevor Siemian against Falcons. Falcons defense makes bad quarterbacks look good. I don't think the Saints are going to have any problem moving the ball. I do think that the Saints defense will be able to come in and basically own that game without Calvin Ridley, without that third option in the Falcons offense. I think it makes it really, really hard for them to be able to move the ball. And I think it makes it easy for defenses. If they had to guard Ridley, Pitts, and Cordell Patterson, totally different thing. But I do think that the Saints defense is probably going to be in a good spot in this one. So I'm taking Saints -7. Denver, Dallas, talked about this one a few different times. So Dallas going to run the ball probably more than you would think. One, because they can. Denver has one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. Dallas's offensive line matches up very well against that defensive line. And they want to take some pressure off Dak. They don't want Dak running around and making a ton of throws in this game, I don't think, with an injured calf. And the poll is over. Of course, it's a tie between all three. Um, so for me, it's the Denver Dallas game is one that I think is probably closer than most people realize, simply because the Cowboys do run. Now, there is a possibility that they run all over Denver and it ends up like the Carolina game where they end up winning by 20 points. But I think Denver also having Jerry Jeudy back is going to give them an opportunity to actually move the ball. And I do think Denver also tries to run the ball a good amount too, keeping it low scoring game, couple options or a couple opportunities for Jerry Jeudy. And we'll see how it goes. I'm not totally confident in this pick, but I like Denver, but I'm taking Denver plus 10. Carolina, New England. In Carolina plus 3 is who I'm taking. I'm not totally sold on New England, not totally sold on Mac Jones. Mac Jones played well for a rookie, but look, well for a rookie is still as a rookie. I do think that that defense probably comes in with a solid game plan. CMC being back in this game for Carolina is a big deal. Um, I think the big part about this game is I think Carolina's defense ends up being able to hold the New England offense to a pretty low total. And I think that's big. I think Carolina has a huge advantage on defense with that front line, how quick their linebackers are, and how good their secondary is. Phil Snow's going to mix it up in terms of his blitzes. He's going to get some free rushers. We'll see how Mac Jones deals with that. I don't think the New England offensive line it's better than what it was earlier in the season, but it's still not very good. That whole defensive matchup is there. I don't know if Carolina is going to be able to move the ball very much either. I think with CMC back, that definitely helps them, and I'll take Carolina plus 3 at home in this particular matchup. I do think Carolina has an opportunity to be able to upset New England here as well. So just a game to be careful. I'm confident in the plus 3. Curious about the actual upset. All right, Minnesota, Baltimore. I'm taking Minnesota plus 6, mostly because the Vikings play very, very close games. Pretty much every game that they play. They've had one game that has finished outside of 7 points in terms of total. So this particular game is one that I fully expect the Vikings to be able to maintain. I do think that they have some solid matchups on defense against the Ravens offense. The Ravens are going to blitz the daylights out of the Vikings and out of Kirk Cousins. Cousins is going to have to stretch the field a little bit more here, because when they send those blitzes, he's one, going to have to get rid of it. Two, he's also going to have to throw beyond those hot routes because the Ravens will squat on those. So he's going to have to be smart with the football. And I do think the Vikings are probably going to try to lean fairly heavily on the run, because you can run against the Ravens. So interesting matchup, but I do think that this is a pretty close game. Browns, Bengals. I'm taking Browns plus 2. This one's a tough one because Cleveland is going to have to play some good defense. The whole Baker thing is kind of irrelevant. The whole OBJ thing is kind of irrelevant. OBJ's right. He's not getting used enough or in the way that he should. But that also means that whoever his backup is in there is not going to be used the same. Look, OBJ can run open, but in this particular scheme, he gets schemed open, and then the progression never makes it to his particular target in that progression. So it doesn't matter if it's him or Donovan Peoples-Jones or anybody else. That person's still going to run open. Baker's still going to throw into the progression. I think this game runs through the offensive line in Cleveland. I do think that they'll be able to move the ball. I'm not confident that Cincinnati and Zach Taylor come into this with a good game plan against that defense. And this type the Browns basically get to do what they want to do all day long. And they don't have to change very much. I think Cincinnati is going to have to change what they want to do, and I don't think they're going to come in and come prepared for it. So Cleveland plus 2. I actually expect Cleveland to win that game. Buffalo minus 14.5. They're miles better than Jacksonville. And in the past, when they've played horrible teams, they've played much, much better. They've played much, much better. Sorry. Friends are leaving that were here from the baby shower. So Buffalo has absolutely destroyed any of the bad teams. So I fully expect them to win by 20 today. Houston, Miami. Interesting game simply because we now have Brissett playing for Miami and we have Tyrod playing for Houston. No idea why they would play Tyrod in this game. This is a game you want to lose, not win. If you're either of these teams, Brissett will help them lose. Will help Miami lose this game. I like and Tyrod should help Houston in this particular game. So I like Houston +4. Vegas. Does Vegas come in distracted or not? They are easily better than 3 points better than the Giants, and I would probably put them at 6 or 9 points better than the Giants. But are they distracted by everything that's gone on this week? Their one bad loss this year is because they were distracted because of the Gruden situation. And I think Bisaccia is the type that he can rally the troops. He can get them focused and everything. So Vegas by 3. Chargers, taking the pick 'em on the Chargers. I don't trust Nick Sirianni to be able to run the ball, which is exactly what he should do. They should run it a ton against a really bad run defense until the Chargers show that they can do it. It's also going to help move all of those players deeper into the box, and then that's when they can use their speed at wide receiver and let Jalen Hurts throw it up. Do they do that? Nope. Have no confidence that they make the right game plan call here. So I think that this is a weird line. I think it should have been Chargers by a touchdown, probably, or closer. And for some reason, it's a pick 'em. And it was a game that was Eagles, or I'm sorry, that has moved. The line has moved in favor of the Eagles. So I there's something I'm missing something here, or the greater public's missing something here. Chargers Philly. So I'm taking Chargers. Pick 'em. Green Bay, I'm taking Green Bay +7. I think this is a closer game. They play ball control offense. Offense doesn't change very much between the offense doesn't change very much between Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. That's not to say that they're not two totally different players or that there's a big delta in how good Aaron Rodgers is versus how good Jordan Love is. I just think that they don't change the offense very much in this particular game. They'll still continue to play ball control, screens, runs, those type of things. And they're going to play too high, just like everybody else has against KC. KC and Patrick Mahomes going to have to be patient, going to have to be careful, going to have those 10-play drives. Look for him to open it up and do that. But can Mahomes stay patient throughout the entire game? He showed that against the Giants. It's not really what he really wants to do. So yeah, I'm taking Green Bay. I think this is probably a closer game, even with Jordan Love in there. Curious to see how Melvin Ingram does. I think they move Chris Jones inside even more because they've been moving him back inside more, which I think is going to be big. And then Arizona 49ers. For now, I am going to run a Twitter poll, but I don't really have time to do it now. But for now, I'm going to go 49ers to cover the -3.5. And the reason for that is I think that the 49ers are starting to come around and starting to figure it out. They're getting a little bit healthy. Offensive line's there. They've got a couple of their running backs back. Jimmy G seems like he found it last week. Don't know if that was just his one game or if of actually being accurate and on time and seeing the field pretty well. I don't know if that was his one game of doing that and he reverts back, or if this is a progression of it. Plus, I think they're going to come out with some interesting Trey Lance packages today. Look for him to get probably a 3 or 4 or 5 snaps at some point. So I'm gonna take San Francisco 3.5. That's a weird one for me though. Rams -7 without Derrick Henry. I just think they're that much better. I do think the Titans can potentially move the ball on the Rams. The issue is that I think the Rams are going to be able to put up a ton of points against this Titans defense, even with Mike Vrabel coming in with a good game plan. I just don't know that they have the players to execute. And the Bears Steelers, taking Steelers -6.5. Reason for that, I think Pitt's front and their pass rush causes Justin Fields some problems up front. Get a couple turnovers. I don't have a ton of faith in the Steelers offense, but I do think that that defense can put them in some advantageous situations and in scoring position pretty quickly. So there it is. What is that? 14 games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games for this week. And there are your 14-0 picks for the week. Thank you guys so much for coming in. A's a crossover. Let's see who else. Sexy, as always. Good luck to your Eagles, man. I hope I'm wrong for you. Typhoon, Everybody who participated today, thank you, Ryan. If you're still here, appreciate you guys so much. Happy Sunday. Go enjoy some football. Really, really, really appreciate you guys hanging out. Hit me up on Twitter at NFLosophy throughout the games. Any questions, comments, anything that you have. Looking forward to a good day of football. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you Tuesday on the recap show. Enjoy week 9.